City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes.
Here.
Alderman Tindem.
Here.
Alderman Grover.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Burris.
Here.
8-1. 8-0.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the Monday, July 21st meeting of the Evanston City Council. First item on the agenda is the mayor's, thank you, public announcements and proclamations. And the first one is Presence St. Francis Emergency Medical Services System's 40th anniversary. Whereas since 1974, the St. Francis Hospital Emergency Medical Services System has been dedicated to providing high-quality education, including emergency medical technician, paramedic training to over 1,550 and continuing education for EMTs and paramedics to make available trained individuals for response to medical emergencies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas Presence St. Francis Hospital has been the EMS resource hospital for these 40 years, providing services to 7 communities, including Evanston, along with 3 private providers, Advance, Elite, and Superior Ambulance Companies, and 2 non-transport agencies. And whereas, by being the designated resource hospital, the St. Francis EMS system collaborates closely with regional emergency departments and colleagues at its associate hospitals, which include Evanston, Glenbrook, and Skokie hospitals. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the St. Francis EMS system, the 3rd oldest in Illinois, is one of 4 EMS systems that are incorporated in Illinois Department of Public Health Region 10, covering a large geographic area, starting at the northern border of Chicago, extending to Wisconsin. And whereas, as a region, in coordination with the Illinois Department of Public Health, the St. Francis Hospital EMS system works to support multiple regional roles, including authorship of standard operating procedures, trauma policy and procedures, standards and practices, and disaster management planning. And now, therefore, I, Elizabeth Tisdall, Mayor of the City of Evanston, do hereby proclaim Monday, July 21st, 2014, as Presence St. Francis Hospital Emergency Medical Services Day in partnership with the Evanston Fire Department and other municipal members of the St. Francis EMS system, do hereby recognize the efforts of the St. Francis Emergency Medical Services for 40 years of dedicated leadership and performance, and urge the residents of Evanston to take cognizance of this achievement and to participate fittingly in its recognition. Take it away, Chief.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. City Clerk, City Manager, City Alderman, City Senior Management Staff, all City staff, the public, and the media. I'm Division Chief Dwight Hall. This year marks the 40-year anniversary of Presence St. Francis Hospital bringing EMS service to the City of Evanston. This partnership has been both rewarding and beneficial to us, training and educating our paramedics to bring the best possible service to our citizens. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Adam Greenberg, EMS System Coordinator. Mr. Greenberg is going to introduce his party and say a few words. Thank you. Greenberg.
Thank you, Division Chief Hull. With me, I'd like to introduce Linda O'Dwyer, who is Director of Marketing and Public Relations, Elizabeth Moss, who is our EMS Administrative Assistant, Annie Abraham, who is Director of Patient Care Services, and Jim Porter, who is our Regional CFO. On behalf of President St. Francis Hospital, we appreciate the City of Evanston's recognition of the 40th anniversary of the EMS system. St. Francis EMS system is proud of the education and services we provide to the first responders of Evanston since 1975 and other communities since 1974. Our training and support helps ensure that the people of Evanston get excellent care at the scene and in the ambulance prior to their arrival at the hospital. I'd like to thank Chief Kleiber, who isn't with us this evening, Division Chief Hull, Mayor Tisdall, and Alderman Rainey, and council members for being our community partner and trusting in us to be the resource hospital to train and support your EMS team. Personally, to me, this is a little bit special because one of my roles as an educator is I actually provide the education to the Evanston department myself. We have people that go out and educate all of our departments, but Evanston is mine. So to me, this is a little more special also. So thank you all.
By order of the mayor. You want us to move all the paparazzi? Yes. Sorry, guys. People at home don't see.
Yeah, that way you get to see your list up in the back.
There are two other stupendous people I'd like to tell you about. Carolyn Coliani won the USA Games Sport Aquatics 100 backstroke. She and 100 freestyle and the 100 individual medley and the 4x50 medley relay. She competed in all of those. And what? I'm tired and we're congratulating her on being chosen as one of the aquatics team members of the Special Olympics Illinois delegation that will compete in the 2014 Special Olympics. Well, here you already did in New Jersey. So my PR is a little out of date. Carolyn Coliani is the recipient of the gold, silver, and bronze medals at the 2014 Special Olympics USA Games Illinois Aquatics Team and a participant of Evanston's Special Recreation Program since 2006. Isn't there something special that it's called when you win the gold, the silver, and the bronze? What? Olympian. Okay. Caroline, would you please come up?
Council members, thank you for giving us this opportunity to be recognized by the city as a whole. This has been a really special moment for Caroline and for Evanston Special Rec as a whole, because she is our first athlete as long as I have been in charge of special recreation, since 1989. First athlete that's actually gone to anything beyond state. So this is a really big accomplishment for her to be able to represent not just Evanston, but also to represent the entire state of Illinois in competition, which was very fierce. And she did, as you heard, very well. So I'm very proud of her. She's been just an outstanding athlete, also been very big help in the community, helping out special recreation. I know that she does have some of her teammates here. Her parents are here as well. One of the community members that she also helps to train in swimming at the YMCA is also here. The family brought one of her, Caroline's students out here. So you can see that she's just probably one of the best well-rounded citizens you can have here in the state. So.
It's an honor to be here. Yes, I did really well at the New U.S. Games. I'm actually surprised myself. I wasn't expecting, get a gold. I mean, yeah, maybe a silver, but I surprised myself because it's a lot harder competition. I surprised myself coming home with the gold. Actually, 2 golds.
Don't sell yourself.
But yeah, I enjoyed the whole experience. I made a lot of new friends, and I continue to do my swimming and continue for Summer State Games.
And we have one more terrific athlete, Parker English, recipient of the Gatorade Illinois Girls Track and Field Athlete of the Year Award, and, equally important, a 2014 ETHS graduate. After winning Class 3A Illinois High School Association state championships in the 200-meter and 400-meter dashes, Parker English was selected as the Gatorade Illinois Girls Track and Field Athlete of the Year for 2014. The award recognizes not only outstanding athletic excellence, but also high standards of academic achievement and exemplary character demonstrated on and off the track, which distinguishes English as the state's best high school girls track and field athlete. Congratulations, Parker English.
Where's Grandma Pat?
I just want to say thank you for the city for this recognition, and to my family for all their support, and my coaches, because without this it wouldn't be possible. Thank you.
Well, that concludes my report. City Manager, do you have announcements?
I do not.
Thank you. City Clerk, do you have communications for us?
I do not, Madam Mayor.
All right, then next item on the agenda is citizen comment. Each person has 3 minutes, and we're going to try to get through in the required 45 minutes. Please be as brief as possible. I'm going to call off the first 4 names, give your name and address. Howard Hendricks, Nancy Strehan, Dan Joseph, and Tom Witt.
Hi, my name is Howard Hendricks. 1332 Davis Street is where my church is. I'm the pastor there. And I'm here to speak to you tonight about the proposal to have a bike path between Asbury and Florence on the north side of Davis Street. Our church has been in this community for over 30 years. In that 30 years, we've served the community in many ways. We have never had a single accommodation from the city, not as much as a handicapped parking space, not one. However, we serve seniors. We even serve cyclists. We are not anti-cyclist in our church, but we are pro-church. We have no parking. We are in the middle of a residential area. The church is on the National Historic Registry, and to put a bicycle path on the north side of that street would encumber us quite a bit. It would make our seniors trek quite a bit longer. Since we have no handicap parking, that would really be an encumbrance to us. So I implore you to rethink the idea of putting a bicycle path in that little block of space, because for us, that would be a death knell to our church as far as parking on Sunday and our weekly service. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy Strehan. I live at 2400 Park Place, and I just wanted to say thank you for a great beginning for a bike plan, and kudos for not adding to any bike bans on it. I'm very heartened about that, and I'm heartened to see as well that the proposals for sacrificing trees for bike lanes were also unpopular. I read as much as I could of the online proposal. So I can be very brief and just say that I'm looking forward to this plan's role in completing our streets, the complete streets being a policy that Evanston adopted earlier this year. And so I urge you to approve of the bike plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Joseph of 1510 Greenwood in Evanston, and probably unofficially the slowest bicyclist in all of Evanston. I'm speaking to support the bike plan and thank everyone who was involved in its development. As a side note, I spoke to many people from T.Y. Lin and the subcontractors, and boy, did they show enthusiasm and good listening when people spoke to them. I thought they were tremendous. I think this bike plan is a great beginning, and I look forward to where it develops from here. Thank you. I hope you vote approve.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Witt, 2312 Hartree. I am a member of the Board of Directors of the Evanston Bicycle Club, and I confess to being an active cyclist. The Evanston Bike Club has been a part of Evanston for 40 years. We're a civic and charitable organization that raises funds annually by organizing the North Shore Century, and we donate the proceeds from that event to many other not-for-profit organizations that promote safe cycling and educational outreach efforts. We have roughly 550 members. In fact, a few of them are here tonight, in addition to Dan. If you might stand for a minute. Okay, thank you. Our membership covers the spectrum from casual cyclists to competitive cyclists, relatively young to those well into their retirement years, people who bike on weekends to people who bike several times a week, people who bike for recreation only, or those who do errands or commute on bikes. Despite the differences in skill and the purpose for cycling and the equipment we may use, I want to make a point that sometimes is overlooked, and that is that our members are also primarily owners and drivers of cars, as well as pedestrians in Evanston. So we are quite sensitive to the conflicts that can arise if the biking infrastructure is not adequate and if cyclists and motorists and pedestrians don't really know how to coexist. The main reason we as a club support the bike plan is that it's designed to make cycling easier for regular folks, not the people who are attired in latex and are hammering away on open stretches of road, but people who live in the community or in surrounding communities and need to get into or through Evanston for other purposes. Why is that a good thing in our opinion? A community where streets feel safe and inviting for all users is a community that's more likely to keep shopping dollars at home.
Mr. Witt, I need you to wrap up, please.
Okay. And two additional thoughts quickly. We understand that education and training are essential. The Bike Club already does some of that, but we are eager to help the city as it moves forward to expand those efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Susie LaBelle, Junad Rizki, Peter Haig, and Marty Martinson. And if you agree with what a previous speaker has said, feel free to say so. You don't need to repeat the same thing.
Good evening. I'm Susie LaBelle and the president of the Evanston Bike Club, and I'd like to thank Tom for his comments about the standing for the club, but I'm here to talk a little bit about my own personal reasons for supporting the plan. While I spend a lot of my time recreationally riding with the club, enjoying outings and an athletic endeavor, I also do an awful lot of my errand by bicycles. I live in Wilmette, 1618 Walnut Avenue in Wilmette, but I have drawn in my mind a mental circle of 10-mile radius where I try to do my shopping and errands by bicycle in that area. That means that I ride to the grocery store, the library, doctors, dentists, shoe stores. I go to my volunteer meetings. I go out to dinner. Because I live in Wilmette, that means a lot of those destinations are here in Evanston. It takes a lot of planning to do this. You need equipment to handle less than ideal weather conditions, some lights for a night trip. I rode here tonight. I'll ride home. There are days when I very seldom get into a car. I find that a great satisfaction. It saves on gas, and I feel like I'm doing my little bit for the planet. But one of the most important elements to me about the bike plan is that it's focusing on bike-safe corridors, connecting places within the community and also to Wilmette and the surrounding areas. When I ride for transportation, I'm looking for a safe, low-stress route to my destination and a safe place to park my bike. I'm not looking for an adventure. I'm not looking for an athletic activity, and I'm not liking to lose my bike. Where there's a path and a bike lane that goes for a mile or two, but then has 2 or 3 blocks where there's a break, the route becomes less attractive to me. If I have to detour out into a busy street, even for a few blocks, or traverse a dangerous intersection, if one of the bike lane ends and another one picks up a half a mile later, that route is really practically useless. I have to think about how I'm going to get from point A to B. Now imagine if I was not an experienced cyclist, but rather a young mom who might want to be taking her children to school, to the doctor, to the library by bike. For her, it's even more important that those bike corridors be continuous and be safe. Then think of those kids a little older wanting to make their journey to the same places. It's important for them that they have a continuous connective path and network. Safe connected corridors and secure biking become an essential, is an essential infrastructure to make these bike plans possible. Really, there are a lot of shopping destinations in my 10-mile radius circle that I cannot safely get to by bike, and I tend to avoid them and pick ones that are easier. Evanston
I'm
itself,
sorry, I do need you to wrap up. We have a 3-minute time limit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Janad Risky, 2074 Sheridan. I'm going to speak on water sales. Unfortunately, again, the city is late to put stuff up on the website, so there's very little time to review this. For months now, I've been questioning the entire water operation of the city. I believe it to be a fiscal mess, as I keep saying. The fiscal documents basically show that we really don't make a real profit here. The capital is underfunded, and Evanston ratepayers possibly are subsidizing the Northwest Water Commission in Skokie. It's a disaster. Looking at these numbers on sales tonight, if you look at these, and I had to look at them pretty quickly, you know, they're projecting out here for years and years we can undersell Chicago, grossly undersell Chicago. Why is the mayor in Chicago raising the water rates? Because he's fixing the infrastructure in Chicago. The city of Evanston has miles and miles of 100-year-old pipe it's not fixing. The reality is also the city's undercapitalized everything. So therefore, these numbers are not even real. And to keep coming up here and making these numbers, we're going to have this great deal to these people. It's just not true. It's not a good deal for the ratepayers. In your old financial documents, you wanted to raise people's water bills here. You raised them 10% with the last budget. You were going to raise them another 20% for 2 years for that water tank, and then beyond that you were going to raise them. But in here, to these wholesale customers, for 18 years, you're not going to even raise the water bill 40% on them. It doesn't make sense. So the whole thing is just not realistic. But you know, the council really has a responsibility to look into these things, to properly look into these things. My issue is not that I can't afford to pay these water bills. I find it outrageous what's going on here with the fiscal mismanagement of this city. There are people in this town that can't pay, and there are a lot of people, actually, if you look at the list, and the city's got monkey business there too, but that's another matter. And frankly, as we look at this, I think it's time this council just takes responsibility, and that's the issue here. And I think you need to really start taking responsibility and fiscally managing the city, and not, you know, there's all this what I would call fluff and show going on here to paint stripes on the streets for bicycle paths, but everything under the street is falling apart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Marty Martinson. I live at 1315 Davis Street. I'm also representing my next door neighbor, Anton Valukas, who lives at 1601 Wesley. We are across the street neighbors from the pastor, and I can tell you I feel his pain. I see it every Sunday when they are struggling to get parking. Let me tell you that, first of all, we overall agree with the plan to have safe biking in Chicago or in Evanston and to connect it to the surrounding communities. However, I think there's two things missing from the plan. The first thing is there's nothing in the goals and objectives about taking into consideration the impact of a particular bike proposal on the property owners and the property users in the affected areas. Also, I don't think there's anything in the plan that I saw that would in any way address the needs or requirements under the city's historic preservation ordinance. I, for one, live in a historic house. We're in the Ridge District. There is nothing in the plan that I see that would require an approval of any action taken to be in accordance with the historic preservation ordinance. I would recommend approval of the overall plan by amending it to include the necessity to study the impact on the surrounding neighborhood. For example, the pastor's church, the neighbors on Davis Street who will be losing parking under the proposed plan, and for myself and my neighbor, the impact to the value of our historic homes if we were to in some way encroach upon the parkway and I think irreparably change the the historic nature of the Ridge District. I think that there are simple alternatives. I don't believe that the data as presented in the plan is either complete or the conclusions that were drawn from the data are inaccurate with regard to the overall bicycle use and the dangerousness of the corridor that runs on Davis Street west of Asbury. I think another look at the data, you'll see that it is not a high volume and it is not a high risk area. So I would appreciate you taking the consideration to amend the plan to include the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Peter Haig. I'm at 1302 Davis Street, and I was here to comment on the bike plan. We all do support the bike plan, but we think it's premature to ask the council to approve the bike plan at this point. The plan was just released and really has not been subjected, to my knowledge, to any public review or comment. The cost of the proposal is a minimum of $4 million on the options that are shown within the proposal. Evanston has much greater needs for $4 million. It seems to ignore the primary accident areas along Dempster and Dodge, particularly with Evanston High School. It lumps together the needs of all bicyclists, whether they be recreational, student, or commuter. It does not break them apart. Evanston is already bicycle friendly. Illinois is the 11th leading state in the nation. Evanston is #1 in Illinois. We already have a very, very good bicycle plan, and we are rushing into something. Alderman Wilson, in a group meeting, said what I thought was the best. The proposals that you're seeing are not perfect, but they're the best he's seen. We're being rushed into this. Evanston has excellent bicycle paths, excellent bicycle plans, and we're working to make them better. We're just ignoring where we are. And I'd recommend that the council take a little more time and get more comments from the public and more specifics from the Department of Public Works before they approve this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Janet Steedle, Rebecca Kukar, Jesse and Rosa Mano, and Sandra Lickety.
Good evening, Mayor Tisdall and Alderman. I'm Janet Steidel. I live at 1401 Davis Street. I ride a bike. I'm here to talk about historic preservation and protected bike lanes. 6 out of the 8 proposed bike corridors on tonight's agenda are in, pass through, or abut all 3 of the city's federal historic districts. I urge this council to act to protect both its cyclists and its historic assets by withholding approval tonight and requiring bike corridor review by the Evanston Preservation Commission in order to ensure their design is in keeping with and protects the historic character of these districts listed on the National Register of Historic Places. One need only look at the 13 through 1500 blocks of Church Street in Ridge Historic District to see that its historic context and character have been adversely affected by the protected bike lanes located there. The green painted pavement and white plastic bollards are not in keeping with the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for rehabilitation. Worse yet is the staff's June 30th recommendation for paving over parkways and harming mature parkway trees to provide protected bike lanes where they are not needed through the 1300 and 1500 blocks of Davis Street, also in Ridge Historic District. Please vote to withhold approval this evening before more harm is done to these districts with national significance. The more we allow whittling away of our federal historic district's character, the more we risk losing these city assets forever. It is a fact that historic districts not only enhance a city's overall livability, but also its financial stability and growth, which benefits us all. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Rebecca Kuchar. I live at 1414 Davis Street, and I'm also here to talk about the protected bike lanes that are proposed specifically on Davis Street. I do support safe biking in the city of Evanston, and I do support protected bike lanes where they make sense. Now, I realize that not everything here is set in stone, but one component of the proposed bike plan that you'll be talking about this evening would be to put a protected bike lane on Davis west of Asbury. And while I understand how this conveniently extends the plan from downtown Evanston, placing a protected bike lane west of Asbury on Davis Street absolutely does not make any sense. West of Asbury, Davis Street is only 27 feet wide. It has parking on the north side during the week and parking on both sides during the weekends, when Davis Street can become so crowded due to residential and church activity that basically it turns into a one-lane road, meaning that sometimes there is no room for more than one car to pass through at a time. It's a bit rough. We have a lot of parking issues on Davis Street for various reasons, but we really should leave Davis Street strictly a designated bike route as it currently is, and it functions perfectly well that way today. There are other options if a protected bike lane heading westbound is absolutely necessary. For example, I will just give one example. Greenwood Street is approximately 36 feet wide. It's 9 feet wider than Davis Street. It does have parking on both sides of the street, but those 9 feet would provide a much safer, much more functional solution for both cyclists, drivers, pedestrians, and residents. So my point is, let's put protected bike lanes where they make the most sense in Evanston. We should leave Davis Street strictly as a designated bike route west of Asbury. It functions perfectly well that way today. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. You'll get 2 for 1 tonight.
It's a deal.
And we have lived at the southwest corner of Wesley and Davis for 45 years by next month. We've observed bicycle traffic there for years. We know of no statistics that show that this is a dangerous area in the city. We are for a bike plan in the city. We are opposed to the threat to our historical district. And I would like to remind those who have been around for a while that our neighborhood has long been a partner to the city, although that organization doesn't exist anymore. And it has long participated in the city on serious issues in our community, and we are still prepared to do that. So we are basically opposed to any of the proposed changes that now exist in that particular plan, and vote that either these be deleted or that the whole plan be held, as the previous people have indicated, until more data and more input from the community is available.
I would like to add that in terms of thinking of plans, I always think a good plan has to have some built-in flexibility. It's like treating a patient. You have to individualize what's going on. And I don't know if enough individualization of our area that we're speaking of has been paid attention to. This is not the downtown. This is not the business district. It is a very old, wonderful residential neighborhood. And the people, our neighbors, deserve, I think, more attention, as they said in Death of a Salesman. It should be paid attention to the fact that they would suffer an undue burden undue burden, and it would be, I think, not a fair burden to place primarily on people who will have to be really stressed for parking. We didn't realize it when we moved here, how fortunate we were to purchase a house that had a garage. But we share the pain of our neighbors. It affects us all. And we hope that the council will consider these distinguishing factors. And we have confidence in the quality of people that come to live in Evanston that you will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I'm next, but if I am, here I am.
Well, you're next.
My name is Sandy Lichty. I live at 1425 Davis Street. I won't repeat all the good things that our friends and neighbors have said because they've made their points very effectively. The only two things I would add is that I could be wrong, but I don't think that something as intrusive as a protected bike lane can be done without approval of the historic and preservation people. I live in one of those big old historic houses that we're very fond of. And we're also very fond of bikes and bikers. So it's not that we object to biking on our street, but the data in the, it's not clear whether it's a plan or a proposal. And I urge you not to vote on it favorably tonight, whatever it is. But the information here says that a protected lane will cost something like $450,000 a mile, and that the Davis Street area that we're talking about, which has no parking for several people who own homes or have purchased apartments. They have no parking except on the street. So if you take away parking, they have no place to put their cars in our neighborhood. So I urge you to take that into consideration, and I think that the cost is quite high, and the maps in the plan indicate that Davis Street is one of the lowest stress areas, meaning it has the fewest bikes on it. At any rate, I urge you to take careful consideration of this proposal and not to vote on it favorably this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Sarah Shostak, Brian Gratch, Tim Tanner, and Mike Prokopras. Sorry, Mike, I think I mangled that.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm Sarah Shostak, a 28-year resident at the corner of Ashland Avenue and Davis Street. And I, too, am concerned about the proposal that was presented to us in the neighborhood on June 30th for a protected bike lane on our part of Davis Street. I ask the Council to consider that the views of cycling advocates were sought out in a process described in the plan as community engagement, but the plan to create this type of lane on Davis between Asbury and Florence was made without consulting residents of our neighborhood. The conclusion was reached without regard to the fact that many houses, as Sandy just said, have no off-street parking or garage. The plan seems to have been made without accounting for the narrowness of Davis Street. Now that I've actually read the plan, I see that a protected bike lane here is best characterized as a solution in desperate search of a problem. I say this because of several things about the plan itself. Counts of bicycle traffic have been taken, yes, but the locations of these counts, page 17 of the plan, are nowhere near our neighborhood. Neighbors know there's very little bike traffic on Davis. In fact, the numbers of cyclists at Church and Dodge have actually gone down in the years 2001 to 2013. As for bike crash risk, nothing directly in our neighborhood has occurred between the years 2008 to 2012. High crash corridors, no surprise here, Davis is not listed west of Asbury, nor is there any high crash intersection in our neighborhood. See page 23. This level of traffic stress, the qualitative assessment of how stressful a roadway would be for cycling based on a number of factors and measures where improvements might be needed based on these stress levels. As Sandy has said, our neighborhood is not one of them. Davis is actually one of the lowest stress streets in Evanston, and there is the huge difference in cost that's been referred to. The plan's methodology that considers traffic, accident, and street stress levels does not support the protective bike plan conclusion for our 3 blocks of Davis Street. It is, as others have said, a National Historic District. It's an old neighborhood. It's a neighborhood, too, where people are aging in place. Safe access from car to curb and to house is very important. It's residential. It's not remotely like Davis Street from Chicago to Asbury. It's a very narrow, dead-end street with low levels of traffic. Treating Davis as if it were Church Street makes no sense. The plan was not shared with us, despite its direct relevance to our neighborhood just 3 weeks ago, and we weren't consulted in the phase of its development. Whether or not tonight's scheduled vote on the plan determines the details of what is to be done with our blocks of Davis, this scheduled action tonight comes as quite a surprise.
Ms. Shostak, I do need you to wrap up.
I am finished. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brian Gratch. I'm 1630 Ashland, just a block off of Davis Street. But I'm here talking about the bike plan and in support of bicyclists in general. However, taking a closer look through this 130-odd page plan, there seems to be a lot of points on here where it just doesn't line up. For example, if you take a look at page 23, high crash corridors are Church Street, Asbury to Hinman. Yet, if you look over at page 28, it shows that Church Street from Dodge all the way through to Chicago Avenue is considered of lowest stress, and that is where there's currently a protected bike lane. We all clearly know Church is a very busy street, so it's unusual to see that the map in this thing is misplaced. Similarly, if you take a look at highest crash corridors, Sherman Avenue, Davis to Central, that's not even listed on the map on page 28. If you look at Davis Street, Asbury to Hinman, total crash, high crash corridors, that too is listed as green in terms of lowest stress. I just point this out as just one item in this that I just think, though it's certainly comprehensive, I think there's some sloppy work or there's some work that needs to be reevaluated through here. And so I would just ask the council to delay voting on this so we can take another swipe at it and just make sure that we actually have a good document to give to staff so they actually can move forward properly. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tim Tanner. Thank you. This is my first council meeting, so I'll try to be brief. I'm sorry?
Welcome.
Thank you. Again, my name's Tim Tanner. I live at 749 Sherman in South Evanston. Currently worked at Brothers K Coffee House, and I run Other Brother Coffee House in downtown Evanston. Come by anytime. I really want to say that I appreciate all the support that the community has put into this Complete Streets project and ideas like this. I think that we can see that the community is well invested in projects like this. But I also believe that approval of the bike plan in its current state would be premature. I believe that it lacks a complete community input in its development at this time, like the Church Street stuff, the historical district stuff. I think we haven't heard from everyone in the community on it yet. I think infrastructure spending and improvements should be, must make using, I think that if we're going to make improvements, it should make using sidewalks, streets, and intersections easier for everyone in the community, for children, for seniors. If we're looking at it, I think that we're thinking about those people first. One example I think of how we haven't done a good job is on the Church Street project. I think we lacked input, we spent a lot of money, and a lot of people don't think it was done the right way. It happened prematurely, a lot of money got spent. I think a couple ways that money could get spent well and efficiently would be on education for children, for seniors, for drivers, on how to use the roads, how to use the sidewalks. I think that would not take a lot of spending, and it'd be a lot of involvement for everyone to hear from each other, so in education. And another way I think we could spend effective money and maybe create revenue, I think if we could better enforce the speeds that exist on our streets. I think part of what makes downtown difficult for cyclists is the variation in their speed and the vehicle speed. I think if we reduce the speed limit in downtown Evanston, perhaps make it a school zone, because we're going to have a high school there soon. If everyone was moving at a lower speed, I think it'd be more accommodating. Maybe you wouldn't need a divided lane if cars and bikes were going the same speed. Something to think about would be cameras that mail tickets to motorists that are going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, because it's a very high volume area. My shop's on the corner of Grove and Sherman. Last week I watched two police cars go by the shop at about 50 miles an hour. We didn't hear lights, we didn't see lights or hear sirens. There was people all over crossing the streets, and I know the officer needed to get somewhere. It was very terrifying. I have a blind customer who crosses that street all the time. I think we need to change the way we think about using the streets. People are walking all over town. Everyone needs to slow down. That's my main message: education, and if we can lower the speed across town, I think we might not need all the infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, my name is Mike Prokopik. Thank you, Mayor. Despite Sister Judith Ann's best efforts, my penmanship is still horrible, so I apologize. It's my fault that you didn't pronounce my name. I'm a resident of 1515 Davis Street, and I am talking to you today about the bicycle plan. And my concerns are the same as many of my neighbors in the area. The historical nature of the neighborhood, as well as the parking issues, are a concern. We moved to Evanston 2.5 years ago for the very things that we are all here passionately talking about. I myself have been an on again, off again biker. And you have used the Davis Street. Have used Davis Street as a route to and from work daily in many cases, and have never had a problem along that stretch of the road. I will only add one more thing to many of what my neighbors said, and that is a matter of safety. On our stretch of 1500 Davis, the road is, as Davis moves westward, it funnels, and our stretch is very narrow. Our front steps are literally maybe 12 feet from the street. And I think as a matter of unintended consequences of removing the parking and putting in a lane here, knowing the behavior of drivers, that this will actually encourage them to drive faster along our street. We have a 2.5-year-old at home, and 2.5-year-olds, as many of you likely know, are prone to do unexpected things, such as run off the steps chasing a squirrel or a bird. And removing the parking from in front of our house, we fear will have an unintended consequence of actually causing drivers who are funneling into that spot to go even faster, which is an area of concern for ours. So just in closing, I'd like to recommend that the council consider the safety concerns of the neighbors and the people who live in that area, as well as the safety concerns of bicyclists who use the city streets as well. Thank you.
Thank you. On non-agenda items, we have 3 speakers: Junad Risky, Peggy Carr, and Stephanie Saunders.
Okay, Junad Risky. Yes, this is a non-agenda topic, but it's actually interesting that on Saturday I went to the meeting on the bike path on Sheridan Road, and unfortunately no public officials were there or the city manager, but I'm very concerned what I saw there too. One of the proposal, and was really the only proposal in my neighborhood, and that's north of Central Street, is to eliminate parking on 3 streets that have no car traffic, basically. Anyone who knows Sheridan Place knows you can't even get on the street in certain directions. And they want to put a bicycle lane down a street with 50 cars probably a day. It makes no sense. And then they were going to do some other things here that make a lot. They were going to eliminate put a bicycle lane down Ingleside Place and Euclid Place. These are all residential streets, and eliminate parking. 50 parking spaces would be gone. And none of this makes any sense. And I mean, we talked about it at the meeting and with the staff there and everyone, and I suggested some other things, but I think this plan is farther along than the plan being presented tonight even, and it's messed up. Some of the things of concern, I know Alderman Burris mentioned things down by Northwestern, but they're going to put some type of little box in front of the traffic at Sheridan and where Isabella, Sheridan, and Ridge come together, have sat in front of the cars, and people are supposed to sit there and turn the corner. That to me looks like a suicide for somebody. So there's some problems again with this, and I did put comments in, and staff agreed at the time they'd look at these comments, but I think what I'm hearing tonight is some of the same things. These plans are not worked out. Now, I'm going to move on just a little bit. I realize why there's such an interest, of course, in the Sheridan Rome project is the city thinks it has money to get from grants. There's a couple $1 million here. But the reality, again, is that's not enough money to do the project and do it right. Basically, if you're going to rebuild Sheridan Road, you don't have enough money, because to rebuild Sheridan Road, you have pavers under there right now that were put there 100 years ago. When they rebuilt part of Sheridan Road, they put in concrete, 1-foot thick concrete on crushed stone. And if you're going to do that over the whole thing, you're not going to have enough money. Also, at the same time, remember the water main again needs replaced. And there was one item I did forget when I spoke to you before about this. Apparently, as I remember, we have sewer connections into Lake Michigan that need to be fixed. I believe we do, so you might want to talk about that. So if we want to be green, we need to fix those things as part of this project. Unfortunately, this will double the estimate possibly and be even worse. So and the other issue is Northwestern is to contribute. Well, I hope we're starting to talk to Northwestern right now about a contribution, because it's not going to be a few $100,000, I hope, because it will have to be in the millions, several $1 million to be reasonable to get this done. So I think the mayor has a job there. And then finally, just as a note, at the township meeting, the mayor promised me that she would try to get me a bicycle path at Northwestern and show me that, as I recall. I hope she's working on that, because I used to occasionally bike. I don't bike very often, but I did bike along the lake there. So I'd like to know the status of that, when we're going to see that plan from Northwestern, if we still have the connection at our park, or is it gone? Because there's always been some issues about that. And that's part of this whole meeting. That was a bike path that we could all use and enjoy along the lake.
Mr. Rizgi, I need you to wrap up. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Tarr. I live at 907 Sherman Avenue. The first time I spoke before the City Council in 2012 to complain about the noise from Revolution Spin located at 904 Sherman Avenue, I stated that many of the residents in the apartments near Revolution Spin were students, foreigners, and mentally fragile. Last Wednesday or Thursday, July 16th or the 17th, I went to the Evanston Police Department and picked up a copy of a ticket that was issued to Revolution Spin on July 5th in response to complaints about Revolution Spin noise, the court date being July 22nd. 2 Evanston police officers came to my apartment late afternoon on that Thursday to deliver a letter to me from Police Chief Eddington. The letter includes the following, and I quote, "On July 11th, 2014 at 10 a.m., city staff conducted testing at the front curb site at Revolution Spin. The reading was 60 to 65 decibels, which is the equivalent of basic street noise. Across the street from the subject business, approximately 45 feet away, the ambient sound levels were at a level of 70 to 75 decibels, and I could not hear any music from Revolution Spin over the ambient sounds of general street noise on Sherman Avenue. The city code does not prohibit this noise at the current use levels," end of quote. The letter that I received is not dated, nor does it give the name of the city staff that conducted the testing. So I want to just clarify that that statement, and I could not hear any music from, was not my statement. That was from the staff person or persons. It is ironic that the city monitored Revolution Spin during a class that has a quiet instructor. I had already noted on a Revolution Spin schedule that this instructor could not be heard in my apartment. In fact, I had gone across the street to Revolution Spin to see if there actually was a class during that scheduled time, and was relieved to learn that there was at least one class that had a quiet instructor. Last Friday, July the 18th, after talking with a resident about the letter from Chief Eddington, she and I went over to Revolution Spin at approximately 10 a.m. so that she too could be a witness to this instructor's quiet. We were only able to hear this instructor when we stood right next to the Revolution Spin door. No complaints have ever been made to the Evanston Police Department about noise during this instructor's classes. On Saturday, July 19th, I called the Evanston Police Department and asked if an officer could ask the instructor of an 8 a.m. Revolution Spin class to quiet down. I and another resident that complained were subsequently told that the Evanston Police Department will no longer send an officer out in response to our complaints. When I called the Cook County Sheriff's Department to see if it would respond, I was told that this matter should be taken up with the Illinois State's Attorney. You can bet your booties I will.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Stephanie Saunders. I'm a lifelong Evanstonian and a resident of the 5th Ward. I thank you for this opportunity to address you tonight. I'm here to speak about an incident that occurred a few weeks ago that concerns the property on Church Street west of Dodge Avenue, next door to Sam's Barbershop. Another 5th Ward resident was standing on the sidewalk adjacent to the said property, observing a truck that was stuck in the mud, and decided to video what was happening with his phone. Minutes later, he was approached by an unknown female who demanded that he leave and stop what he was doing. And a security guard came and intimated that he might be hurt if he did not do so. The resident, of course, responded that he had a right to be there as well as to video since he was on the public sidewalk. Well, of course, as word spread among our residents, we were outraged that one of our own was threatened and was mistreated. However, since the time of this incident, the new owners of the property, Tawani's Enterprises, have inundated the city with apologies and immediately took action to rectify this occurrence. They agreed that security at the site was unnecessary at this time and made amends by contacting all those who were involved with their sincere apology. As 5th Ward's residents, we are always curious about new happenings in our ward, and some of us will stop by to see something new unfolding in our midst. I want to thank the Tawani's Foundation for their swift action to rectify this incident, as well as their interest in developing here and partnering with Evanston organizations such as YOU. I believe your attention to this matter demonstrates your willingness to be a good neighbor and a part of the Evanston community. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes citizen comment. City Manager, we have special orders of business.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, good evening. We have several items this evening. First, we have not heard from our partners at Downtown Evanston for some time. They have a new executive director, Annie Coakley, who's here this evening with a brief presentation. Annie, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Clerk Green, City Manager Bobkowitz. I am Annie Coakley, the Director of Downtown Evanston, and I'm pleased to be here to present to you tonight. I've been with Downtown Evanston for 4 months, and before taking this position, for a little background, I worked with the City of Chicago's Department of Planning and Development, where I worked on district management as well as small business grant programs. I'd like to thank the City of Evanston staff who have reached out and been so welcoming and warming and have provide a lot of insight. Many of you have probably heard parts of this presentation. However, for those of you viewing at home or in this room, this is a brief recap. This Downtown Evanston is a 501c6 with a board made up of 23 individuals. Class 1 representing the Chamber of Commerce, Class 2 representing the top 10 taxpayers in the downtown district, Class 3 representing the city manager and the director of public works. Class 4 is a mix of office, retail, and restaurant business owners. Class 5 represents 2 residents from the downtown district and 1 from the outside of the downtown district. I'm not going to go through all of their names. This presentation can be found on the downtownevanston.org's website. Our executive committee, however, is made up with our chair, Chris Mailing, property owner at 1027 Davis, Rob Gilbert, a treasurer for Arthur Hill & Company, and Adrian Brewington, the secretary from Hilton and Garden in Chicago, North Shore, Evanston. Downtown Evanston had an organizational goal-setting exercise a few years ago. These are the 5 goals. I know a lot of you have heard those. I will briefly talk about how I continue to make sure these goals are met. Starting with number 1, I will continue efforts to work with local brokers and reaching out to independently owned retailers both in Evanston and in Chicago to see if there are possibilities for them to expand in Evanston, as well as working with the economic development staff on Next Chapter. And as in terms of retention efforts, working with, again, the economic development staff on in-depth interviews with retailers to decide what tools they need to strengthen and grow. I have been attending the Performing Arts Task Force meetings for goal number 2. Goal number 3 actually came from a meeting with the mayor when she suggested that I better communicate with downtown Evanston residents, which I would be doing tonight at their condo association meeting, but I'm here, so I will be on their next agenda. We're also looking to encourage more communication and outreach to all Northwestern students, not just the undergrads, but the ones that are in grad school, as well as the students that do not live on campus. For the goal number 4, I'm working with city staff on sidewalk cross art, as well as a public mural downtown. Again, I think a lot of you are pretty familiar with the businesses that have opened in the past year. So here are, just let you peruse. Not going to name them all because there's too many, which is a good thing. And these, again, are the logos and some of the storefront photos for those businesses. Coming soon, Bangers and Lace, the Hyatt Place, Kung Fu Tea, and Campus Gear will be moving actually across the street from their current location. Our website traffic is up. We've seen an increase of, I think, 20,000 visitors to our website from the same time last year, and 77 of those visitors are new visitors, so that's a good number to have. We're also seeing a lot of the traffic coming from several different cities. So of those 117 visitors from in the past year, a little over 4,000 of them have come from different cities. Most of them, however, coming from Chicago, Evanston, and the surrounding North Shore communities. Our top referral sites coming from the city's website, Northwestern, and Google. The Downtown Evanston gift card. Currently, the average amount purchased for a gift card is around $40. It's currently accepted at 156 businesses, 87 of those independently owned. A trend for some businesses not participating is a lack of corporate approval. So we're currently looking to update the functionality of the card. Currently, the card can only be used once. We want to have it so that the card can be reloaded through our website or mobile app. Social media, obviously on Facebook and Twitter. We are new to Instagram, so if you're on Instagram, please follow us at Downtown Evanston. We have quite a few fans and followers at both of those, Facebook and Twitter. We're also providing weekly and biweekly newsletters to over 4,800 people, looking to create a tips and trends newsletter for retailers on ways they can better promote themselves or partner with us to do that through a paid subscription to Retail Minded and working with the Chamber of Commerce. For example, a topic might include how to bring more foot traffic into your store while there's a street festival and take advantage of the current foot traffic that's being brought during an event. These are last year's seasonal banner ads that were mainly put in online advertising. I've created a marketing committee led by Hank Goldman on my board. And that includes other downtown businesses and representatives: Lisa DeLeontoni from Acquirent, Angela Valvanis from Creative Coworking, Joey Conway from Koi, Lori Stein and Julie Cameron with McCaffrey Interests, and Peggy Siebert from Becky and Me Toys. We've had quite a few meetings, and our three main goals at this point are to make our website more mobile-friendly and more functional, 2, to have more online advertising, and 3, to enhance special events in downtown. The banner program, we had seen a 60% increase in the banner program from 2013 to 2014. There are currently 134 banners, and obviously the banner program not only provides aesthetically pleasing look and placemaking for downtown, but it provides extra exposure to businesses with their names located on the bottom. The maintenance, our landscaping contract, I think, has been pretty much the same over the last few years. At least that's what I've seen in my files. We're maintaining 17 pots and sidewalk planters and beds located throughout downtown. We completed the annual power washing the week of May 19th. Fall cleanup and debris removal will also take place this fall, and we are continuing the 5-day-a-week trash removal. I do want to recognize that I am aware that some of the planters aren't looking quite where they should. That is because some of the perennials didn't bounce back after the harsh weather conditions, and Landscape Concepts Management, our vendor, will be going out in the next 2 weeks to replace those plants that aren't looking so great. And then again, our contract is up at the end of this year. I have a draft, but I'm looking to partner so we can hire locally through that contract. Other events that have taken place and are taking place, it's Thursday, Let's Dance has a new location. Obviously, Big Bite Night will continue. Last year there was a health and wellness festival. And these are photos from this year's It's Thursday, Let's Dance at the new location in front of Life Kitchen at 1603 Orrington. And the Holiday Bash. Our marketing committee has been working and discussing how to better enhance the Holiday Bash for this year, including being more proactive with our local businesses to stay open later and to create happenings and discounts and to provide more hot cocoa. This is happening right now. I'm sure several of you are very aware of that. The Sherman Avenue resurfacing between Grove and Lake. We are Team DE reaching out with the retailers on how to better discuss how they can promote themselves this weekend during our sidewalk sale. And then starting next week, the planter bed abatement at Sherman Plaza will take place. I have been doing in-person surveys throughout downtown and at the farmers market and getting in front of people with these little chalkboards, asking questions, then they fill in their answer and I take a picture. It's been a fun way to kind of understand the retail wants and desires of the daytime population, visitors, and residents downtown. I will also continue to partner with the city at attending retail events through ICS and the International Council of Shopping Centers. Other ideas under consideration, Art Under Glass. I'm looking to bring that back. I have reached out to 13 property managers. 8 of them have provided approval to move forward with the program. And the good news is that most of the ones that could not it's because they're negotiating a lease right now for a tenant. Parking Lot Day is on September 19th. It's an annual worldwide event where artists, designers, and citizens transform a metered parking lot into a temporary park for the day. Again, that's just an idea under consideration. We did host on June 17th a Bike to Work pit stop at the Fountain, and we partnered with Active Transportation Alliance, and we were deemed the largest suburban pit stop with over 50 bikers to the event. On June 26th, WGN Morning News Around Town segment came to promote It's Thursday, Let's Dance, the new location, as well as 9 live shots promoting, in general, Evanston downtown. Found Kitchen, Life Kitchen, and Smiley Brothers all got a chance to promote themselves on live TV. And if you're interested, I have a clip, but if you're not, I understand. Okay.
When a When a technology company with a vision turns to Goldman Sachs for financing and advice, breakthroughs in women's health happen. Doctors diagnose diseases earlier, and a company called Hologic makes progress.
This brought to you by Goldman Sachs.
Starting out for Around Town.
Anna's dancing in the streets in Evanston. Hey, Anna.
Because we refuse to think it's not summer in Chicago, we're also going to make a smoothie with Chef Jeremy Bringartner, fresh off his win from Food Network's Chopped. He's here with his real job, Life Kitchen. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. I feel a little guilty because life is also about eating healthy, and I just had a donut.
That's okay. We're going to get fixed up with a kale banana smoothie, and it'll take it right out of your system.
That was a Dennis and the donut.
Kale is just a quick turn off, Jeremy. Is this going to taste good?
Of course. It's going to be amazing. So we're all about taste. Okay. Let's get making this thing here.
I'm the sous chef.
All right.
Kale first.
So get the kale in there.
Okay.
Kale's very bitter. Oh, no. It's okay. It's your first smoothie. All right.
Frozen cucumber.
Kale's very bitter, and we're going to balance it with the sweetness of these frozen bananas here. Okay. We're adding the cucumber, so in lieu of ice to get our icy texture, while we're adding fiber, but it gives you fiber, but a lot more nutrients. So we're going to add some liquid. This will be apple juice.
This is what you add a lot of this, so it tastes a little better.
Well, this is a double batch here, so it looks like more than you're actually going to consume.
Got it.
All right. So
what's
the
this?
Sweetness of the apple juice and the sourness or the acidity of the lemon juice is actually going to balance the bitterness of the kale.
Right.
All right. One more thing.
Ginger.
A couple of nice, good chunks of raw ginger. So that gives you a little bit of heat. In the
How many calories in this?
So one tall glass that you're gonna see here is 200 calories. Okay. 209 calories. All right. So now we're just gonna blend it up.
You're gonna make me drink this live on the air.
You bet.
This thing that looks green. But the whole point of life is these fantastic dishes, all under 600 calories, that you guys have come up with.
That's correct. So every dish in Life Kitchen is under 600 calories and under 1,000 milligrams of sodium.
That was a little extra kale I really wanted, Chef.
That's okay. So if you notice, before we blended this, it looked like a salad. So you're going to drink this salad, but of course the nice thing is it's going to taste like a delicious sweet smoothie. Not bad, huh?
That is good. I can do this.
You can do it. All right.
Chef, thank you
there's
so
a cup of raw kale in every one. That's like intense nutrients, superfoods, and a Life Kitchen. That's what we're all about. Great tasting, good for you foods.
Okay, do a little shimmy so we can say goodbye and justify the samba. We'll be right back with more. He won't shimmy for me. Back to you.
I don't know the shimmy.
I don't shimmy. Back to you.
I'd also like to thank the Rotary staff and Aquarian staff who came out and danced at around 7:30 in the morning, so it looked really good on TV. Public art, as I had sort of mentioned at the top, is one of the items that I would like to undertake, again, with working with the city and the CTA. The CTA has already given the green light to work with the Clark Street underpass, and I've had a meeting with Alderman Braithwaite as well to discuss this. And we will further engage other elected officials, residents, and local artists to make this a reality. Again, it's Thursday, Let's Dance. We have 3 left. Rio Bamba, which was on that clip, is this Thursday. And the Evanston Sidewalk Sale is this weekend as well. And that's it. If I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to.
I don't think anyone has any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Dave Stonebeck, our utilities director, is here. He's going to give an update on where we are with wholesale water sales.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Alderman Clark Green, and City Manager Bobkowitz. Again, just a quick rundown on where we are with wholesale water sales at this point in time. Our existing customer, Skokie, has been with us for a very long time. but their contract does expire in 2017. We've already provided them a letter indicating that we do not want to automatically renew the existing contract, and that we'd be looking to form a new contract where the rates would be established on the AWWA M1 rate. And we believe that they'll see a significant rate increase as a result of that, and we want to give them plenty of opportunity in advance to make a decision on how they would like to proceed once that contract does expire. The Northwest Water Commission is looking to expand. They are hoping to bring Des Plaines, Lake Zurich, and Long Grove Village into their fold as not as members, but as customers that they would sell water to. The Northwest Water Commission is also partner with the Northwest Suburban Municipal Joint Action Water Authority to conduct a study that is being performed by Corolla Engineering to find another source of potential getting lake water up to 100 million gallons a day for those two different organizations. And so that study is underway and is estimated to be completed in September or October, and that would help them prepare some kind of timeline on what they would want to proceed with and how they would do that. And one thing I do want to point out, the Northwest Water Commission is under contract with the City of Evanston through 2035, and that rate is established based on the AWWA rate. So even if they decide not to take a drop of water from us during the life of the contract, they would still have to pay us money in the tune of about $1.8 million a year. They've implied to us that they would continue to take as much water as they possibly could from Evanston, because they realize that even if they build their own plant, that they could not purchase water cheaper than what they are getting it from Evanston at the current time. So things continue to move along with them slowly, though. Lincolnwood, we gave Lincolnwood our best and final offer in December 2013, and we really hadn't heard back from them until about 2 weeks ago when we received an email indicating that they have hired Christopher Burke Engineering Firm to represent them in dealing with the City of Evanston and when they want to start up negotiations again to purchase water from us. So we appear to be moving along in the right direction there. Lincolnwood only takes approximately 2 million gallons a day, so it's not a real big customer, but it would be a new customer to Evanston, which would be a good thing. The communities that really seem to be in play right now are Morton Grove, Niles, and Park Ridge, and more so Morton Grove and Niles. They have put articles out. The city managers have indicated that they would like to try to make a decision within 60 to 90 days on how they would like to proceed.
Alderman Rainey, excuse me, has a question.
Sure.
Just curious, is Christopher Burke doing any work on our water plant in any form at all?
Not for the utilities department, not at the water plant. I believe they have performed work for the City of Evanston in traffic matters more, engineering, traffic engineering.
Street matters?
Yes.
Yeah. What about if we were opening up a street before we pave it for water and sewer? Would that be a conflict for him, for the company?
I guess I don't have an opinion on that, or couldn't speak knowledge.
Somebody needs to get an opinion if he is working, and I think it's interesting. I mean, he's done so much work in this town.
And Madam Mayor, Alderman Rainey, I think the conflict likely is the other way. I think that it would probably be a problem for the village of Lincolnwood.
Well, but I think that would be questionable. I mean, the point is he? What I want to know, is there a conflict for anybody? Okay, I'll settle for that.
Is there? I don't believe they are under contract with the City of Evanston at this point, so there's not a conflict.
For anything.
I'm sorry?
Burke is not under contract with us for anything.
Okay, well, then we'd be happy to talk with them. Again, my sense is it's a conflict for Lincolnwood, not a conflict for us. But thank you for raising the issue, Alderman Rainey.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. And then moving on again to Morton Grove, Niles, and Park Ridge. So Morton Grove and Niles clearly have come to the realization that they could get water cheaper from somebody other than their current supplier, the City of Chicago. And so they have listened to Evanston and what we proposed. And in the meantime, Glenview and Wilmette have partnered together and has also provided a proposal to provide water to those two communities, Morton Grove and Niles. And the options that they're reviewing are Evanston. We could serve all three towns with our existing capacity at the water plant. Wilmette and Glenview. Wilmette would actually have to increase the capacity of their treatment plant by 4 million gallons to be able to provide Morton Grove and Niles, as well as Glenview and Wilmette itself. This gives a rundown, the estimates of how much those communities could save in comparison to purchasing water from the City of Chicago. Morton Grove, if they went with Wilmette and Glenview plan, they would realize $450,000 in savings. Niles would realize $374,000. If those two communities were to build a transmission main and come to Evanston and purchase water from Evanston, Morton Grove would save more money than going to Wilmette and Glenview. Niles would save less. But as the bottom line indicates, if Park Ridge were to get involved and all three of them purchase water from Evanston, because of the group, the Park Ridge buys more water than the other two, they're the furthest away, everybody could save significant dollars by coming to Evanston. And so I think what Evanston needs to do is really to start working with Park Ridge and trying to get their attention. Morton Grove and Niles had hired a consulting engineer, GeWalt Hamilton, to evaluate the two different proposals, the proposal from Wilmette and Glenview and the Evanston proposal. They saw the same numbers that were on the last slide, and then Niles and Morton Grove asked GeWalt Hamilton to do a presentation at Park Ridge, which they did do on May 5th. I was in attendance. And this is a slide that came from the GeWalt Hamilton presentation that shows the drasticness of how much money they could save. So this red line is the Chicago rate. We know what it is in next year, and then they increased it by 2% a year, which seems to be a reasonable thing. The blue line is the Evanston rate along with a debt service rate. So they would have to build a transmission main in Evanston. It's going to cost them $115 million to build that pipeline between the three communities. Park Ridge's portion of that is approximately $50 million. And then after 20 years, after the debt service is paid off, then they're only paying the Evanston rate, which goes way down here. So in year one, they save $1.27 million, which was on the last slide. But because the Chicago rate's showing to increase so much and the Evanston rate along with the debt service doesn't, they increase money every year, and then when their debt is paid off, they're saving close to $4 million annually. So over the 30 years of a contract, they could save $125 million. All these facts have been presented to Park Ridge. I've been in communication with the Public Works Director out there several times. I was at the meeting on May 5th. I talked to the Finance Director. Mayor Tisdall has sent letters to the mayor of Park Ridge and the trustees out there. We're promoting ourselves as much as we can, and we try to keep in constant communication with them to see what we can do. I believe that our next step would be to try to offer to help pay some of the debt service or finance a portion of the Park Ridge transmission main, which would make it much more attractive for them. We could make our rate, this rate right up here, while we pay off the debt, and they would still realize the savings. We could charge them that full rate, not just what our wholesale water rate would be. So that's the option that I think we have to look at, and I believe we're going to be looking at a financial advisor to help us make a package for that and make them aware of it. This next slide demonstrates just our wholesale water rate. We're proposing at 92 cents a 1,000 gallons, estimated that they would start taking water in 2018. At the Utilities Department, we've looked very hard at what capital improvements we would need over the next several years, including the rehabilitation of the clear wells and reservoir, our treated water storage, a replacement of an intake, and we've included those large capital costs into what we see would occur over the next 30 years and what our proposed rates are. Wilmette and Glenview. Wilmette sells the water to Glenview for $1.76 a thousand gallons, and Glenview's stepping on top of that 81 cents just to have the water go through their pipelines to get to Niles or Morton Grove. So their rate is $2.56. And then looking ahead over 30 years, that rate's only been increased by 2% a year. And so you can still see that it's a large advantage for these municipalities to come to Evanston just for the water rate over a long time. So we keep pushing that as well to try to make this happen. The problem is the capital cost. This is what's holding up these other communities. So the Glenview-Wilmette plan, the cost to get the infrastructure in place is estimated to be $38.5 million. If it's just Morton Grove and Niles coming to Evanston, the transmission main proposed to be constructed is $92 million, and if all three communities come to Evanston, the transmission main's longer, and it's estimated to be $115 million. So that, selling bonds for that type of a capital investment is what has everybody concerned and why they aren't just jumping on the bandwagon to do this, even though they probably would realize over $1 million savings year one once they did that, including having to pay off their debt. So we just keep pushing that as much as we can to have the people understand the long-term benefit of doing this. In our evaluation of the Wilmette-Glenview plan, we think that there are some fallacies in with that. Baxter Woodman prepared a plan to show the transmission mains going from Glenview into these other communities. They list all these pumping stations and improvements that are needed, and you add them all up, and it's $38 million, except there's one reservoir and pump station that has a cost to be determined. So obviously it's going to be more than $38 million. I'm not sure if it's a $200,000 improvement or if it's $2 million improvement. It's a cost to be determined, but it's a hidden cost. It's not included at that time. The rates that we showed increasing by 2% a year for Glenview-Wilmette, in our opinion, does not include all their long-term capital improvements that will be needed. We know that the Wilmette plant was constructed in 1933, so a portion of their low-lift pumps, their intake pipe, their clear well and treated water storage system is very similar to Evanston's. We've done a structural analysis on ours. We know we need a large capital expense to rehabilitate our plan, and we included our infrastructure, and we've included that in our proposed rates. We don't believe that the Wilmette-Glenview plan actually includes those type of capital costs. So we think that these communities should be looking at that much closer as well. And then with reliability, even if Wilmette expands their plants to 47 million gallons a day, they're still about 4 million gallons short of meeting the peak day demands of, if all of them occur at the same time, of Wilmette, Glenview, Niles, and Morton Grove. And so there's a little bit of a shortage there that I think has to be addressed. And then in Evanston, we're well aware of the fragile ice condition that occurs during the winter. We had a situation a couple of years ago, and we immediately took action and put a low voltage heating intake system on our 54-inch intake to prevent fragile and anchor ice from developing. We have funding this year from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency to put a second one in on our 48-inch intake. Wilmette does not have any of this infrastructure in place on their intakes. And in the past, when these situations would occur, they were able to reduce their pumpage and keep their pumpage down, which would help prevent the formation of the anchor ice. But if they add these other communities to their demand, they won't be able to reduce as they currently do, and therefore it could be a much more serious problem for them in the future. With that, I would take any questions that you have about what our plans are.
Thank you, Dave. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I mean thank you, Madam Mayor, for all your work to promote and sell Evanston's water and its water pumping and transmission services, and thank you, Director Stoneback, for appealing to the pragmatists in Lincolnwood, Morton Grove, Niles, and Park Ridge, who once they see all the data and understand it all, I think they'll only reach one conclusion, that is they're going to be coming to Evanston for their water. But as we know, municipalities are not the most nimble of organizations, and to undertake a bond sale of close to $100 million is not an easy one to do. But I expect that they'll come around, because I don't know how they can turn away from the long-term trajectory of their costs and of their savings from buying Evanston Water. What's the next step with these 4 municipalities that would lead us to maybe hope that there's a decision pending?
With Morton Grove, Niles, and Park Ridge, I believe the best thing Evanston could do is look at sharing in the debt service cost and building that cost into our rate for the life of the debt service itself. So we wouldn't want to build it right into our water rate. We would want them to get that break. So probably forming some type of an organization, a joint action water authority, with the 3 communities and Evanston partnering together and sharing in the risk of constructing a transmission main and financing it, and then being responsible for maintenance of a portion of it. It would almost make sense for Evanston to be responsible for the maintenance of that transmission main through Evanston at least. So I think that would be our next best step. And again, I've had conversations with the city manager about bringing a financial advisor on and start talking into this and developing a plan that we could then present to those other communities.
So the next step is still ours, you think?
Unless they call us up and say they're going to buy from us right away.
And if I may, Alderman Grover, members of the council, Davis, I think, has done a great job of trying to make this as simple as possible, but it's really not very simple at all. What other factors are involved is what the Northwest Municipal Joint Action Water Agency, otherwise known as NIMSI-JAWA, would do. That if they participate with those communities, it is a much larger project, which means additional savings all around for all of those various communities, but ultimately they would have to agree to do that. As Mr. Stonebeck indicated, NIMSI-JAWA is working with the Northwest Water Commission on a study to bring lake water from Glencoe to Des Plaines and then treated in Des Plaines. So there's lots of moving targets here, and I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to continue to talk with all parties, continue to keep a sense of urgency moving forward. I think the large amount of rate increases that all of these communities have seen from the city of Chicago have caused some concern. So we'll continue to be vigilant.
And to that end, the city manager and I went out and visited with the JAWA this morning and told them where we were at and made them aware that Niles and Morton Grove had indicated that they were looking to make a decision within 60 to 90 days. And if they make a decision, then that has an impact on what our rate would be to that organization as well. So we're trying to be well above board and keep everybody informed of what's happening. It is just a very complicated with lots of moving parts in it.
And you are doing a fabulous job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, Director Stonebeck. Should we as a community be reaching out to try and create more of a grassroots campaign within these communities and to make the average citizen in Park Ridge aware of the
benefit,
the clear benefit of these numbers? Should we send everyone a bottle of Evanston water, and a mailing from us explaining these numbers so that they can understand it?
I would
at
think
this point,
that would be appropriate.
Yeah, because at this point it's up to their governments that need to make this decision, and I recognize how difficult and what a big leap it would be for these communities to go out for $115 million. But if they're even slightly like Evanston in terms of citizen action, then perhaps a letter from the mayor and the city council inviting them to have some Evanston water at this wonderful rate, and that they should step forward and start pressuring their councils.
I think that we're hoping to get some of tonight's presentation into the newspapers in those communities, and hopefully people will read them and get it on.
Yeah.
Other measures, if you know the elected officials in those communities, please feel free to talk to them and encourage them.
Police chiefs, for example, in Park Ridge, who used to be police chiefs in Evanston,
Right.
things like that.
Well, and, maybe we should invite the city councils of those communities to come in and...
We have invited them.
Right. Well, and invite them again, and I'm just trying to think of, these numbers are so clear, and I think that obviously it's a very big leap to make those decisions, but they have to make it. I mean, the clock is ticking for them.
After the presentation in Park Ridge, they were going to refer it back to a subcommittee, the Public Works Subcommittee, and that meeting was to be 2 weeks later, and that's been postponed. So that's been since the end of May that a subcommittee was supposed to take this up and look at it again. I know that their finance department's been very busy. They just resolved some refinancing of bonds as well out there, and they also have a sewer issue, if you can believe that. A lot of basement flooding, so they're trying to address that. So,
well, perhaps we could give them some free advice on how to apply for low-interest loans from the IEPA, since we are such an expert at that. Can I ask one other question?
Go ahead.
Is it possible to, for this type of infrastructure, are IEPA funds available as a loan, as they were with the long-range sewer plan?
They are, and there's even a better mechanism that's out right now. I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's called WIFIA. And it's very similar to the IEPA loans, but it's specifically made for projects that are over $20 million and will have a regional benefit. So with 3 communities being involved, it is a regional benefit, and it's in the price range that this new funding source would be better for, and it's at the very low rates similar to the IEPA loans.
And I'm sure that you tell them about all of the accolades we received from the IEPA during our 15-year long-range sewer plan?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if I've told you, Dave, I think I did, that the other states allow the federal flow-through money that creates our loans from the IEPA to be not only loans but also grants. And so I've asked Congresswoman Schakowsky and I've asked our state legislators to please look at giving us some of this money in the form of grants, which would be very helpful. Alderman Rainey?
Dave, what would it take for Wilmette and Glenview to increase their capacity by $4 million?
For that type of improvement, it's estimated to be $4 million, approximately $4 million. Black and Veatch conducted that study for Wilmette, and they had 3 different options. One was to increase to 47 million. One was to increase to 56 million gallons a day, and then and I have that number here somewhere.
But what's the likelihood of their doing that?
I believe to increase by the 4 million gallons at $4 million is something that they're readily willing to take on. The next one was to increase up to 56 million gallons, which would have allowed them to provide water to Park Ridge as well. But that cost to increase the plant to that, I believe, was, let me find it so I can say it right. It was $12 million, and they didn't seem interested in doing that.
Can you give us, I know you told us some of the figures, but in order for us to participate in laying the pipe, the capital costs of that, you said that we could do that. That's something we should start thinking about, and we would increase the rate of the communities in order to cover the debt service. But can you give us some numbers on paper, or have you already done it and I don't know what I was reading?
I have done it. I would have to provide that to you.
Yes.
Would
you just reference where it is so I can look at it?
Yeah, I can send all of you an email tomorrow giving you those numbers.
Yeah, okay, that would be really good.
City Manager.
And one other thing. What do we stand to gain from this financially beginning in year 1? And do you have a chart showing, a spreadsheet showing over time what we would benefit from?
As part of the cost of service study, yes, we do have what, they don't call it a profit when you do that, they call it a savings. You realize the savings. And
is it a profit?
It is.
Is it a gain? Is it increased revenue?
It's more money coming in than what we have now.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hammond, Indiana sells water to a number of municipalities, and Hammond has not had to raise their water rates in over 40 years. So the money comes in, it depends on how you want to. We could transfer it to the general fund, we could leave more funding in the water fund and not have to bond for things. We could do both. We could have some in the water fund and transfer more to the general fund. But it is a reasonable profit. And again, we're looking at a 10% return on rate, and that is substantial that we'd be able to see a profit on.
Are we at all going to be controlled by the courts having anything to do with the rate we charge?
The reason that we're proposing to use the AWWA M1 rate methodology is because when the communities that purchased water from Chicago sued Chicago back in 1990, and Chicago won that court case based on the fact that they were able to justify their rate, saying that if you use the AWWA M1 manual, this is the amount of money we should be charging. And that's why we selected it. It's a very transparent, open rate structure. It makes sure that there's a revenue or a profit, a savings realized by the seller producer. It gives you a reasonable return on rate, and it's fair to those communities that purchase water from us. They would all like to have this vote on whether we build a new reservoir or not, but that's left to the home community. But again, we went to because the citizens of Evanston don't want to have to pay for a reservoir that we don't really need either. So it's a very fair rate method.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, I think it's important to kind of piggyback on Alderman Rainey's question about what's in it for Evanston. It sounds like there's a lot of savings to these other communities. Perhaps we could talk order of magnitude. I know that Lincolnwood would be the smallest of the communities we've talked about. What would, for example, an order of magnitude be if Lincolnwood became a customer?
And I'm going off the top of my head now.
Order of magnitude.
About $350,000.
Okay. So if you were to add Nimsey Jowich with 7 communities, the other 3, throw in Des Plaines, the order of magnitude is in the millions of dollars a year, not the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
And those dollars are then available to the Evanston City Council to either use to pay for infrastructure improvements, to pay to balance out rates, or for other general purposes.
Yes.
And without the additional water sales, that money does not come to Evanston.
No, it does not.
So I just want, there's sometimes some misinformation by members of the community who come before you about this issue, and I think it's important to set the record straight that we are doing this to help our neighbors, but we're also doing this to help the taxpayers of Evanston, so that if we're leveraging the existing infrastructure that we have, we are able to make additional dollars that help Evanston residents. And then one final question for me, Dave. If we were to help, we've talked about perhaps helping Park Ridge, are we expecting Evanston ratepayers at any time to pay for any of the improvements necessary to bring on any of the customers you talked about this evening?
No, not at all.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Currently, if we add Lincolnwood, Morton Grove, Niles, and Park Ridge, we do not anticipate any plant expansion at the water plant at all. So our cost to have them come on is zero. I'm sorry, for Lincolnwood, we would be spending approximately $3.4 million to build a water main from our south standpipe at Cleveland and Hartree to the border at Howard and McCormick.
Which they would then pay for through the rates we would charge them.
Yes, they would. And that helps. That's our estimated rate to Lincolnwood is $2.21. And the reason that they're higher than some of the other rates that we're talking about is that they get water through the Evanston distribution system, so they have to help pay for the 12-inch and larger water mains, their proportional share of those. But then that one pipeline that was built that I referred to earlier that entire asset is allocated just to Lincolnwood, and they pay for that over time, and then they also give us a return on rate on it, and they also provide us for maintenance costs, assuming that we're going to have to do maintenance for it. So all that is built into the rate. That's the beauty of the AWWA M1 rate methodology. Unfortunately, it's not what our current contract is with Skokie. We have something similar to that with the Northwest Water Commission, but not all of our assets were included when we made the contract with the Northwest Water Commission in 1980. At that time, Chicago's rates were very low, and the city manager at that time we had the spare capacity. We make a revenue from selling water to the Northwest Water Commission. It's not the revenue that we could make if we were under the full asset list of the AWWA method.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Director Stonebeck. One last question. It was asserted earlier that we aren't fixing our water mains.
We are.
There was a blanket assertion that we're not fixing our water mains. Can you explain how much of our water mains we fix every year?
We replace or rehabilitate approximately 1.5 miles a year, and that's costing about $3 million a year. Mm-hmm. Last year, we also received funding from the Washington National TIF, and we replaced the water main on Davis Street, so we did more than 1.5 miles. Next year, we are looking to replace the water mains under Sheridan Road or rehabilitate them, and that's in excess of the $3 million. Okay. So we're doing about 1.5 miles a year, and that is 1% of our water main. And then this year, in fact, this Wednesday or Thursday night, it's Wednesday night, for the first time we hired a contractor to rehabilitate a water main using a lining method. It's not the exact same process as in the sewers, but it's very similar. It's a process that's approved for potable water, but they only excavate at certain locations, and that cost is approximately 75% of replacement. So if this becomes a viable option for us, we're going to be able to stretch how many miles we rehabilitate using the lining method compared to the open cut and replacement method. So between TIFs, we're seeking IEPA funding for some other large diameter water mains. Getting IEPA funding on an annual basis is a challenge to schedule. This is the water main that we're going to replace and then resurface the street, because a lot of times you don't get the funding until the summer is almost over, and then that is inconvenient for the residents because they have construction, and then it stops over the winter and the road's not in good shape, and then it starts up again. So for funding for water mains from the IEPA, we're only looking for very large projects that would be very significant, and we could schedule them appropriately whenever the funding came in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
for your
Director
time.
Alderman Rainey made a suggestion that we let people know we are considering holding over the bike plan since people are waiting for this and the hour is getting later. Why don't we change the agenda and do the bike plan update and report now? And if you want to hold it over, you can make that motion.
Madam Mayor, what I'm most interested in doing is getting some answers to the questions that were raised, and maybe a re-examination, especially of the Davis Street strip. And there may be others that people weren't even aware of. So that would just not, I mean, everybody likes the bike plan, except there are pieces that need to be adjusted. And I don't think this is the time to do it. I think they've raised questions about how many people really were involved, and maybe now this has raised it to a level of, awareness of people other than those who ride bikes.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
I just would want clarification, Madam Mayor, on what the bike plan is and what's being asked of us tonight. Are we being asked to approve everything that's in the bike plan, or are we being asked to, I think, just accept it? No, with the understanding that it plays out, the different aspects of it play out over the next several years as we are able and can afford to implement it. This is not
Well, I believe Alderman Wilson, who is our most notable bicycle expert, who could not be here tonight, would like us to hold it over. Is that to hold it?
I move to hold it over.
And one of the things that I would ask is I'm very concerned that it include more education for the bicyclists, because they are not always obeying the rules of the road. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to share, because some of these residents are actually from the 2nd Ward, that this past week I did meet with our Public Works staff and voice some of the concerns that were shared this evening, and also a part of our public discussion back at our June meeting. And one of the things that our staff shared, that we will not move forward with this project this year. So that gives us some time to really engage the community, have the necessary dialogue, answer some of the questions, provide some of the data that was requested. So do know that the project will not, we're now no longer on the September timeline, and it will not be until 2015 that that specific portion will be addressed.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
I'm sorry, I'm confused as to what project. There's not a, we're not considering a project tonight, right? Or even when this is held.
So for clarification, my understanding is that there's current construction going along Davis right now. So they've repaved from Asbury to Wesley. So the next phase was to install the bike lane. So we met last month to get feedback from our residents, and we didn't really come out with a strong enough plan that would allow us to move forward. So last week, our staff informed me that we would not move forward with this project until 2015. So there are more details. I assume that we would talk through that when we receive the update from staff. But just to the residents who've been sitting very patiently, I just want to let them know, because there have been a lot of emails flying back and forth and a little bit of confusion on the whole process, just to let them know that the project will not move forward until next year. So it gives us, I think, the proper amount of time to address all the issues that we heard this evening.
So if we hold it, can we also have an update on some of the status of some of these projects that, I don't know if they're behind us or in front of us? And
good point. I think we can do both.
Yeah.
I think
I was going to say, because aren't we, if we're going to hold it, we shouldn't be discussing it. So shouldn't we just wait for the update until we do
so
that?
my conversation was strictly to the residents. I mean, the procedure I get, and I think we can. There's Director Robinson.
Director Robinson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, Clerk Green, and City Manager Bobkowitz. Suzette Robinson, the Director of Public Works. I guess we have a couple of options. Part of what we wanted to talk about for the staff update, which is kind of the cover to the actual final bike plan, because we think that there's some important issues that we need council direction on, more global issues as we figure out how to move forward with the whole idea and concept of comfortable corridors. So I guess if we could at least go through those portions of the slide. There's no action associated with those, and then we would come back with the final bike plan update, but I at least wanted to share with you some of the issues that we're going to be coming, so at least you can start thinking about the direction that we're going to be seeking from you in the future.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, there's a motion to hold. It was seconded. Mm-hmm. If we're going to continue this, there needs to be a motion to overrule the holdover. And I would appreciate that not happening because it's too late. This agenda item says, staff recommends the City Council acceptance of the 2014 updated Evanston Bicycle Plan. Acceptance of the plan, which you're asking for tonight, will provide staff guidance. The guidance is, let's hold it over, guidance for development of an implementation plan to improve biking in Evanston. We've heard several reasons why we should not give you this authority tonight, because people don't want some of this plan discussed to be implemented. So let's hold it over, and you'll come back with responses to some of these questions, and we can move on. This plan is not, it's not going to be, we're going to have a bike plan.
Alderman Grover.
I think what Director Robinson is referring to is there is the proposed updated bike plan, but staff already also presented and prepared, wants to present the staff report. So the agenda item is both the bike plan update and report. The action requested was on the updated bike plan, but I think staff's report is kind of a separate part of this. So what are we holding? Are we holding staff's report?
Well, it came together.
Right. So I guess we don't want to talk about this at more than one. I mean, it's pretty clear from residents' comments that there's some misunderstanding about, well, everything that I'm misunderstanding, and that the staff report would be helpful in understanding and knowing what questions we have on the actual bike plan. It's unfortunate that both things were grouped together in one agenda item.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, I'm not sure what you just said, Alderman Grover, but I'm sure whatever it is, you can enlighten us at our next meeting when we discuss this, because this has been held over.
Yeah, this is.
You want to continue discussion, I'm going to insist that you move to overrule the holdover.
Okay, it's being held over. End of discussion. Thank you, Director Robinson. And now it's the Youth and Young Adult Program update.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, we're going to do a variety of things this evening with this report. Kevin Brown, who's our Youth and Young Adult Manager, is here to talk about the piece of work that he focuses on, and his team. Karen Lyons, the Director of the Library, is here. I saw Bob Dorniker, the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, is here. We want to give you as much of an overview as we can this evening. I think Mr. McCray, maybe you could come up just first. There was an incident in the community this evening that perhaps not all members of the council are aware of, so perhaps if you could just brief everyone to that, and then we will move forward with your presentation and Director Lyons and Mr. Brown's presentation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Clerk Green, City Manager Joe McCray, Deputy City Manager, and Director of Parks, Recreation, Community Services. Yes, we had an incident this afternoon. During the course of this evening, we had a shooting over at the corner of Emerson and Dodge area, in that general area. 2 individuals were shot. Their names have not been released yet. Both are non-fatal, 1 shot in the arm, 1 shot in the hand. And our outreach team is out there, as well as, of course, our police department is out there trying to manage that situation and follow up on those occurrences. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
So I think that really demonstrates the importance of the work that many of our city staff are doing this summer. And unless Mr. McCray have other preliminaries, we'll just have Mr. Brown start.
I just was going to say, just really quickly, that I do appreciate the support of this City Council and you all's willingness to invest in this important effort. And I also was going to start out by saying that I appreciate and am proud of the work that our staff does in trying to reach out to these opportunity youth and the importance of this work. I don't think I need to speak to as much as I had planned to before. But this work is important. These individuals are important, and this council understands that, and we appreciate you all's continued support. So with that, I will introduce our Community Services Manager, Kevin Brown, and let him speak to the good work that they've done.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, elected council members, Clerk Green, and City Manager Bobkowitz. Appreciate the opportunity to share information about the youth and young adult programs, and actually a number of successes that we have had over the last 2 years. We began, I believe, in March of 2012 with 2 staff members at that time. We have now fully staffed the program where there are 2 persons that are myself and Ms. Portia Davis, who is also here as the assistant program coordinator for the program, and you'll be hearing from her a little bit later. We also have 6 outreach workers, and so we'll talk about the work that they do. What we want to talk about very quickly, of course, I've never done this before, so I'm trying to, where do I point the clicker at? Oh, okay. Pardon me. So what we want to talk about is what we do, which is actually we do help young people to become productive citizens. We're very engaged with all of the local youth services in Evanston, a number of the community-based organizations, and trying to partner and connect with them and establish some partnerships. And we have done that. We'll talk about that. We've increased the youth participation in many of the local activities that have been developed. We are partnering with Oakton Community College, Northwestern University, and others, the Youth Job Center being one of those agencies, to create marketable job training and placement. And then we are creating a number of activities that mostly disengaged young people sort of gravitate to. And so we're trying to create social and recreational outlets that attract disengaged young people that the White House Opportunity Council terms opportunity youth. These are the youth across the country. It's roughly about 6.7 million. 17% of our youth in the age categories of 16 to 24 are considered disengaged and disconnected youth. Many of those, about 3.4 million, are considered chronically disengaged. Those are people who are defined as never in school or work after 16 years of age, and about 3.3 million are what we term under-attached opportunity youth, and those are defined as a lack of progression through college or into a job. And so our office is actually targeting many of these youth in Evanston. According to the Evanston 150 group, there tends to be about 3,000 of those opportunity youth in the city of Evanston. The barriers that they face are lack of jobs, no work experience, a lack of education, a lack of transportation, soft skills issues, criminal history, poor credit scores, and then there's a motivational issue. And I think we're all familiar with some of these issues that have been talked about because it's such a national problem that the White House Opportunity Council deemed it a national security issue. We, in our program, as I stated earlier, have 6 outreach staff. 2 of those staff are full-time outreach staff members. 4 of the staff actually work on a part-time basis. So they dedicate about 155 hours a week to serving opportunity youth. Each of them is required to have a caseload of about 15 opportunity youth in this community. However, every single one of them have gone far and beyond the caseload that they have been assigned. They are engaged in the activities, as Mr. McCray talked about, in terms of reducing gang and street violence. They're reducing gang membership and connection to connecting youth to opportunities. And the way that they have done that is to actually develop relationships with a number of the young people who are disengaged. We're not talking about the hardest hardcore, but we are talking about the larger number of youth who happen to be around the most hardcore individuals. And so that is a national strategy and a national best practice to sort of siphon away youth that could get engaged in this behavior that's so destructive in the community. We have served since 2012, March 2012, 416 clients in our particular program. And The focus of those clients, as we said, are upon youth who have been engaged or are in harm of being engaged in violence. So we are engaged in violence prevention, intervention, and reduction. Of those 416, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the programs that they are involved in. But in addition to the success that we've had with those 416 individuals, we've had a large number of individuals that we've been able to obtain employment for through the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program. When we started in 2012, we were at 160 youth. We were able to increase that number to 350 youth in 2013. This year, we will hit 500 and actually probably a few jobs over 500. So we're headed in the right direction. We do know from the research that if we can get to at least 1,000 young people being employed, it has a significant impact and reduction upon criminal activity in a community. So that's national data. Of the 416 clients, a number of them have participated in a program that we stepped here before you and articulated, the Youth Job Center City of Evanston Career Pathways Program, building career pathways to sustainable employment. We've had tremendous success with that program. We've had 43 individuals participate in that program. We'll be coming back to Human Services in August or in September to talk about another appropriation and a third cohort. At least almost 70% of those individuals who participated in this program are in permanent employment, and not only are they in permanent employment, they've been permanently employed for more than a year. So that is well beyond the national data on programs of this nature. We have assisted other individuals who've not participated in the Career Pathways program in finding both permanent and part-time employment. Our outreach workers are in our community, and they are working with the hardest to reach clients. They're working with the clients with the most barriers and the most challenges. And what they have done is developed relationships with both National Able, with the Youth Job Center, with Howard Area Community Center and Employment Center.
Excuse me, Mr. Brown. Alderman Rainey has a question.
Yes.
Sorry, you got beyond the question, but can you tell us the age range of the people who have been permanently employed? I don't know if you said the duration, a year or what, but you said a certain number have been
18 to 26 is the age range.
And how many were there?
43.
Excellent, thank you.
We also have a program with the YMCA and the McGaw YMCA. We are working with them and their SRO to employ individuals that may be participating in the Career Pathways program who are in need of housing. So we've been able to house 13 clients as a result of that program at the Y. And we gotten great support from the Y, from Bill Geiger, with the support of the mayor, I believe, in terms of setting up the meeting with Bill. And so we've gotten really, really tremendous support from them in trying to provide the supports and the wraparound services that are needed for individuals to be gainfully employed. We have, as I said, working with the highest or the hardest to reach clients and the most at risk. 64% of that 416 number have criminal histories. And one of the things that the city is able to do through our program is to work with the James B. Moran Center on a certificate of rehabilitation, record sealing, partial record sealing, expungement, and clemency program. We have two individuals right now who petitioned for clemency, and there was no adverse reaction to their petitions. So we're hopeful for those two individuals. But we have had 62% of those clients go through the program and either gain a certificate or had partial record sealing or permanent record sealing, or they engage in expungement. So we've had a great success with that particular program, and we get individuals that approach us on a weekly basis looking for help to help them clear their criminal records, or at least make them more palatable to employers. The really tremendous thing that has happened, I like to thank through the leadership of the mayor and the staff. We have had almost $507,000 in grant funding since 2012, and that has come through grants with the state of Illinois as well as with the county Homeland Security. Those monies have allowed us to increase the number of jobs that we've been able to offer summer youth, and it's been a tremendous support. We will continue to look for other funding opportunities that can support our program. You received a poster from me earlier this evening, and on the reverse side of that poster, it talks about our increase in terms of our community partners and local business. And we have increased those partners tremendously over the last 2 years. Some of the signature programs that result from those partnerships happen to be the Mayor Summer Youth Employment Program, the Career Pathways Program. Even today, we had 12 individuals enrolled in a commercial driver's license program that's occurring right here in this building. That was occurring today. That is a program with Oakton Community College. At the end of that program, individuals that complete the program will be gainfully employed with a trucking company. There are 2 companies that are participating and have pledged employment for those individuals. We also worked with the United Services of Chicago and the Chicago Urban League. We had 13 individuals actually go through a construction, a state construction, highway construction training program, and those individuals are on their way to becoming first-year journeymen. So that is a workforce training program that has been very successful. We also, through the mayor's leadership, have connected with Northwestern University. That workforce program is open to people beyond the age of 26, but it is also a program that we work with in recruiting individuals who will hopefully, there will be 25 individuals employed this year and 50 in 2015. And then the last program we talked about earlier was a certificate of rehabilitation program that has helped a number of individuals to become employed. So with that said, are there any questions that we can address?
Alderman Burris.
It looks like you've got a lot going on here. Great. I just a couple questions. Is there any, you have obviously a lot going on with the youth. You have the youth outreach workers, which seem to have a large portfolio, for lack of a better term. Is there any outreach, or is there a complementary program that we're thinking about to the parents, guardians, grandparents of the youth that you're targeting, that you would say, we're seeing some real issues, and so doing that in tandem? So that's my first question. My second question is, because the outreach workers have so many people in their portfolio, has there been talk about a mentor match program for these people as part of it, sort of like longer term, that there's that one-on-one? So thanks.
Those are 2 excellent questions that What we have laid out in the last 2 years is a foundation to build upon. And I think that we are moving towards the next phase of this effort by reaching deeper into families. One of the ways we're going about that is to talk with Evanston Township High School. We've met with Assistant Superintendent Marcus Campbell. He has an ambitious idea to partner 525 black male students with mentors. And so we are participating in that effort, and part of that effort is also going to reach into families and talk about ways to work with the family as well as with mentoring the young people.
I just want to follow up. I strongly believe that we need to do that portion with the families if we're really going to make substantial change long term. Without that two-generational piece, yes. I think we're going to not reach as many and have long-lasting effects. So I'm excited about looking at that as a longer term. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And first, thank you, Mr. Brown and Joe and the staff for the tremendous work that they've been doing over the past 3 years, as well as the mayor's leadership, Alderman Holmes, and the other community partners. I think just given tonight's recent incidents, it definitely stresses the need to continue your work, and you have our attention right now. And it may be a difficult one to ask, but I will, and it's just straightforward. What additional resources do you think that you'll need over the next year or so that we could potentially provide to help with what's going on the streets?
Well, I mean, obviously, I know the city manager has talked to us about providing additional resources. We have indicated some of our part-time staff, if they could be elevated to full-time, it would allow them that additional time to build programs where we can help with the families as well as do additional work in the community. There's also a meeting that is occurring tomorrow, I believe, where we're still talking about additional needs and resources.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Brown. It sounds like even with your staff who are taking on more cases than they expected to, working longer hours than they expected to, that you've had a remarkably stable staff. They're hanging with us through all of this, and so please thank them all. And I have two questions. One is, how many young women account for the youth that we are serving through your programs? And my second question, maybe Ms. Davis can answer this too, is what challenges have you encountered in either coordinating the programs or reaching those that you want to reach?
One, just the women, probably it's a 60-40 split at this point. 60% men, 40% women.
And I think a lot of people presume that it's mostly directed to young men, but but if we're reaching whole families, the women count too. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
And to answer your question about the most challenging issues that we've had this year, it's a difficult question to answer because we've had such a successful summer with having the community really support the city in our division with the Mayor's Summer Youth and Employment Program, specifically with encouraging local business owners and businesses to participate in hiring a summer youth. And so this year, unlike years past, one of our biggest challenges has been we've seen a tremendous increase in 14 and 15-year-olds seeking employment. And so, as many of you know, that is a difficult group to place because as 14 and 15, they're too old to participate in summer camp activities and those fun things, and they're too young to gain employment with majority of our employers. And so that's a new challenge for us, and that's something that we're excited to modify to accommodate that group next year when the summer approaches.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown and Mr. McGray and the rest of the staff, and particularly to our outreach workers who are out there doing it. I really do appreciate that. But I wanted to follow up on Alderman Burris's comment about working with the families. I truly believe in an extended family kind of program, and I certainly hope that that is one of the things that you can put high on your priority list, because we do need that. It's a specialty in terms of really getting in, finding out who is in charge of that family, and then trying to work with it. I think that would be a much, not only would it be a benefit to our program, but I think it would enhance and also begin to look at some of the root causes that, that we're seeing happening in our community.
Yeah, it is, I've noted it, and we will be coming back to you with some kind of a plan that addresses the entire family.
Great. Thank you.
I think that's all the questions.
Thank you. Oh, I did want to say, which I neglected to say, I did want to thank our whole staff. We had staff who were here this evening, and I did want to recognize them, but as Mr. McCray talked about the occurrence, they are, are they here? Oh, they're back? Okay.
Come on in.
Come on in.
Alderman Rainey has a question.
Mr. Brown, I just wanted to comment on your public relations informational poster. You acknowledge the funding that you've gotten and support that you've gotten from, just about everybody in the community, from one end of the town to the other. But one thing that is not mentioned on here,
yes,
the Community Development Block Grant Committee allocated $30,000 to this program, which was one of our largest grants. And people never acknowledge that money. That money comes to us, and it's very special money, and we struggle with how to hand it out. And so many people don't get it that are so deserving. That means that those who do get it are extra deserving. And it would be good to be noted on here that your peers at the city allocated that money. It is not city money. It is Community Development Block Grant federal money.
We will make
note that.
We will make note to make a special notation
I'm sure
of that
you'll
result.
be back in September.
I will be back in September, and we constantly talk about it and acknowledge the Certificate of Rehab program, which has been a tremendous success.
And we also fund the Youth Job Center so that this can happen, and the Moran Center. So it would be good to note it.
We will do so.
Thank you.
I did want to just recognize Mr. Nathan Norman, Mr. Stacy Moraney, and Mr. Maurice Wilkerson, three of our outreach team. There are three others that are not present. Jeremy McCray, Bianca, or Angelia Bianca, and Chris Bull, who are not here this evening. But these young people are in the streets, working very hard for the city of Evanston, and I'm very humbled to be working with them because they are really making it happen, as Alderman Holmes said. So thank you very much again.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to ask Karen Lyons, our library director, to talk about the portion that the library department is working on.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Clerk Green, members of the City Council, City Manager Bobkowitz, Karen Danzig Lyons from the Evanston Public Library, here to talk to you about some of our results so far for the summer reading program, but also to call your attention to a couple of programs that I think are germane to what we're discussing this evening. We know that reading at grade level and maintaining your literacy ability is an important part of how you succeed. And so we begin trying to make those connections with the very youngest of our citizens and then continue to engage them as they grow. One of the programs I'd like to call your attention to also helps with one of the issues that was mentioned a few moments ago, which is how to employ some of the 13 and 14-year-olds. We have a program that's in the third year, which is called ABC Boosters, where we bring 13 and 14-year-old children in and teach them how to read to our youngsters and also how to teach the alphabet. They receive a stipend, they receive some job skills training, and they work with preschoolers so that at the end of the 5 weeks of their cohort, not only have the teens gotten some job skills, they've made connections with some little ones, and the youngest now know their alphabet. We had one little boy who began the 5 weeks and knew 5 letters, and at the end he knew all of his letters, and he had a new friend who was a teenager who was not a family member to look up to. We continue to look for ways to engage the children as they grow, and we have almost, at last count, 2,000 of our grammar school children that are actively participating in the summer reading program. And so they're coming back and reporting, and they're reading, and they're doing crafts with us. We added 4 family night programs to engage the entire family in fun craft activities and programs. The most popular was Lego Building Night, and we had 75 in attendance there. Out of the Teen Loft, which is located downtown in our main library, this year we had 466 teens registered and participating, and that's 100 more than we had last summer. We also had received a grant to do some paper and bookmaking, so it's all about, this summer is all about creativity in all of its aspects, and so the teens are learning. It's a very messy process, but they're learning to make paper and books, and they're enjoying that very much. We brought our programs out to the parks in partnership with Joe McCrae, and we've embedded some of our summer reading activities in the parks. We hope to expand that. We also go to Ridgeville Park and bring our programs out there. And finally, I'd like to call your attention to a series of programs that we're producing in partnership with the Day J. Coleman Foundation, and they're all around the book, How Long Will I Cry? Voices of Youth Violence. And so along with finding ways to be creative, we're trying to find ways for reflection and discussion and learning around violence and youth violence. The next program is a book discussion. It's this Friday at the Sherman United Methodist Church at 2214 Ridge Avenue, and it will be from 6:30 to 8:30. On August 9th in the main library, we have 2 programs. One is a dramatic reading where our teens are producing some readings through this book, and then we're having a discussion with someone who has his expertise is in interrupting violence, and so there will be a discussion that follows, all of which trying to find ways to engage and discuss and learn and reflect on the price that we're paying because of violence in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Mayor, members of the council, certainly within our Department of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services, lots of other programs. I think we're going to hold a review of those over till a future meeting, but from arts camps to day camps to lakefront activities to the Ecology Center, many hundreds of youth are being actively engaged throughout Evanston this summer. And I think as the presentations this evening just give you a flavor, we're hitting people in a lot of different ways, and I think that's what we really need to do, and we're going to continue to do that. I want to thank Christina Ferraro, who's the Assistant Director for Community Services. Thank you also, Christina, for the excellent Ethnic Arts Festival over this past weekend. But the camps there, and Bob Dornicker, who was here earlier, I want to thank them both. So, Madam Mayor, that concludes the youth and young adult program updates. We've done the bike plan update. Next is, and I hesitate to even raise the issue, but the results of our snow survey. Cindy Plant, our local government management fellow, was charged with putting together the survey and compiling the results. So she is here this evening to walk through the results of the survey. Jim Mayworm, our Assistant Director of Public Works, who's rested and ready to go for the winter season already, and is here to talk as well about some other changes that we're looking for the winter 1415. Ms. Plant, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Here to present the findings of our resident survey on snow removal and snow-related communications. The survey was conducted in March and April of this year, just after the snow season ended. We had about 236 residents participate in that survey through our Engage Evanston web portal and through 311. One of the first questions that residents were asked was what their preferred notification method is for snow route parking ban and snow emergency. The city uses a variety of notification methods to get the word out in the event of those parking changes. And the most popular preferred notification method was email. Our email subscriber lists are among the largest nationwide. We have around 30,000 on our weekly e-news, and we use a lot of that list as well for snow-related notifications. Text messages were the second most popular notification method and most preferred, followed by our website, and sirens remain at number 4. Overall, residents are satisfied with communication from the city regarding winter weather. The most interesting finding here was with that text message piece. Although that was the second most preferred method of notification, the majority of respondents and participants in the survey answered not applicable when asked whether they were satisfied with the text messages, which suggests to us that many people are not receiving those messages or don't know that it's a service that we offer, which makes sense because this is a fairly new program. I think this was the first or second year that we've done it, which has led us to want to look into adding that sign up for those text alerts through mobile phones as a part of the annual wheel tax and wheel tax renewal process, such that when residents go to renew their wheel tax, they'll be automatically enrolled in email or text notification unless they choose to opt out. There would be prominent language displayed on the forms, both online and in person, for folks to do that if they choose not to receive those notifications. But by including it in the wheel tax process, we can ensure that we are hitting as many Evanston motorists as possible. Sirens remain popular. This is sort of always a question, you know, should we still be doing this? It's kind of a weird, quirky thing in our area, but it's a way to sort of remain inclusive of the entire community. If not everyone has access to the email, the texts, and all that type of thing, people generally remain satisfied with the whole siren process. So we recommend sort of leaving that alone, leaving it in place. I'll throw to Jim Mayworm.
Excuse me, Alderman Braithwaite has a question.
I just had a quick,
yes, sir.
Just a quick question regarding the sirens. I remember a few meetings ago, Alderman Rady made a comment about there being some confusion between the Evanston Skokie sirens. So I'm just curious to know who regulates the sirens, and is there something that in the future we could do to make a distinction between our city sirens and those that would come from the city of Skokie?
Our city sirens, it's my understanding, are sounded on a particular schedule, depending on whether it's a snow route parking ban or a snow emergency. And one of the recommendations that I'm going to talk about a little bit later is going to be a larger public outreach and public information campaign covering all of our snow and winter weather awareness and advisory materials. So that would be something to be included in that as well.
And Alderman Braithwaite, members of the council, I'll ask Mr. Mayworm. I believe the village of Skokie has changed how they use their siren. Are you familiar with that, or?
They have changed how they've used their siren. They're not as aggressive as they have been in the past. They're using different methodology.
I believe their snow route parking ban is now automatic, so that if the snow level reaches whatever their threshold is, where they would sound a siren in the past like we would sound a siren, they just do it. And they expect their residents to know that without the siren. So I believe that has impacted probably in a positive way for Evanston. There's less of that duplication because of that confusion. So I think, as you'll hear with the recommendations, I think we also feel there needs to be more information about the sirens in general for the larger community. So while people like them, I still think there's some confusion between a snow route parking ban and a snow emergency, when the sirens are, and if we get that information out on an annual basis, especially for those residents that are new to the community, we think that will be a positive, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute.
Yes, so good evening, members of the council, Madam Mayor, Mr. Manager. I wanted to run over just and highlight a few things that we discovered through the survey that affect us operationally. Overall, as you can see by the survey, that our residents have been satisfied with our snow removal efforts. And the comments that I heard last winter tended to support that. Although overall there's a satisfaction level, there were still some consistent themes that people chimed in and spoke out about. And so we looked very carefully at a lot of these different issues here. Of course, some of the ones towards the end that had more participation, inconsistent enforcement in regards to parking bans, and some of our enforcement in sidewalks. We'll be examining exactly how we implement any kind of parking bans, et cetera, this year a little bit more closely to improve our consistency. That seems to be one of the big things people are concerned about.
And Mr. Mayor, maybe I could just interrupt you there.
Yeah, sure.
We got to the end of January and had expended our entire budget for snow removal for the year. At that point, we made the conscious decision to look down the weather calendar. I think it was probably 3 or 4 additional instances, and made some calls where while the snow would meet the threshold to call the snow emergency, the sheer amount of cost associated with it, combined with what we saw in the weather forecast, that after 48 hours, as you recall, some of those snows, the snow went away because of a change in weather. So we are looking at that very carefully. I think there was a time over the last maybe 24 months where we occasionally would say there was a voluntary compliance. We learned that Evanston residents don't like that. It either is or it is not. There is not anywhere in between. We've heard that, and my direction to Mr. Mayworm and Ms. Robinson is we're not going to do the voluntary compliance. Either we're in or we're out. I think we're going to be mindful of budget, and if the forecast would show significant melt within 24 hours, because at least at one point we were looking, I think, at rain for a second day of what would have been a snow emergency, and we decided not to call the snow emergency. The weather played out, and the snow was gone thanks to Mother Nature in large part 48 hours later. So there is the reality of the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that we spend on snow. I think we're going to continue to be mindful of that, but the days of this is a sort of emergency are gone.
Thank you. One of the other ones that I really wanted to point out that has some influence, as you'll see on the next page, with our fire department as well, is some complaints in regards to roads not plowed curb to curb. Generally, overall, operationally, that will be addressed with our operators during our annual training method, but when I went through the more detailed analysis of what we had, what I was finding was a theme that some of the roads that we have in town that are rather narrow just because of the construction and old condition of them, tended to get even more narrow because the snowbanks were so high that people had a very hard time getting out of either their driver's door or their passenger's door, and then tended to creep their cars in a little bit further. Although the roads were plowed curb to curb, this was a unique and a different circumstance, and something that 92 inches of snow will provide for us. So that did lead to some problems with the fire department, and discussing that with them, they confirmed that we did have some problems with emergency vehicle access on certain streets. And with that in mind, we're looking at possible solutions on what we've identified right now as at least 8 streets in town of various length, for the possibility of some seasonal parking restrictions, or just increasing our special postings and operationally using newer equipment that we have, like you see here in the photograph, that in the wintertime has a snowblower attachment that's attached to that. Utilizing a piece of equipment like that could allow us the opportunity to stretch over and extend our removal operations in a more specific and surgical way to allow people the opportunity to open their doors and thus keep a narrow street a little bit wider and maybe solve some of our problems. Seasonal parking restrictions is a possibility, but we're very sensitive to the needs of parking in town, and that's something we may end up doing if we can't come up with other solutions, but at this point we're focusing on operational opportunities.
And Mr. Mayor, maybe we can amplify that as well. There are a number of streets, primarily in South Evanston, that are especially narrow, and if you look at our street sweeping maps, you can see them called out because we handle them in special ways. And surprise, surprise, it's those very streets that also cause difficulties with snow removal.
Yes.
And we've heard from the residents, we've heard from the ward aldermen that there's probably a dozen streets, mostly in South Evanston, but scattered around the rest of the community as well, that are particularly impacted because of the narrow nature of the street to begin with. So,
and that's a correct generalized statement. Absolutely, there were a couple of locations that did surprise us, and we're looking into the circumstances of that in the neighborhoods that you wouldn't have generally thought there were problems. So there were a couple that caught us off guard. One of the things that Public Works has been doing for quite some time now in recognition of the narrow streets is actually widening our streets during our capital improvement process. Where we don't have locations where we have a lot of tree conflicts, we've actually gone ahead and pushed the curb lines back a little bit more. Sometimes all it requires is a couple of feet on either side of the street, and that really opens things up for us, allows us to do a much better job with snow removal, and allows much cleaner vehicle access. One other item that we picked up on the details of the survey, although generally people are satisfied to shovel their own residential routes, we did have complaints when the snow depth got really intense, and we took a look at our safe route to school walks. And what we would like to implement for the 2015 season is a pilot program to do a few areas with a few schools that are listed right there, and utilizing some of the new equipment that we have to see under intense circumstances whether or not we can assist in getting kids in areas where we've designated as safe walk to school easier to walk to school. So we're looking at the details of that still. Cindy?
Right. So moving back to the communication piece.
Excuse me, Alderman Grover has a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Plant, Mr. Mayworm. The pilot program for the school safe route to school routes, would that be targeted at plowing the designated school walk routes?
Yes. Some of this is still notes that we had from the blizzard that we had several years ago, where there was a lot of interest in us doing something about it. Last year, we didn't have the equipment available to really do this. This year, we've been able to add several more that we feel might give us the opportunity to do that. Not really sure if we're all the way there yet. That's why we were looking at a potential pilot program, and under what conditions. We haven't come up with the details of that yet either. So whether that would be only during a snow emergency circumstance. There could be confusion with that, so we're still trying to work out some of the details.
So the 26.5 miles that the report mentions as being safe routes to school walks, those are the official, what did I call them? The school walk routes that are on the school's websites. That was our first round of safe routes to school a few years ago.
Yeah, that's the total quantity of all of them. Right. Our pilot program would not do all of those initially.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Back to the communication side, for notifications of that snow route parking ban, snow emergency, we are looking to have there be an opt-out process as part of wheel tax and residential parking paperwork that you do every year in December. So it's timely in that it's at the beginning of snow season to have residents that go through that process to register their vehicles or obtain parking be automatically signed up to receive those notifications, but still offering them the opportunity to opt out if they choose to. More broadly, throughout the community, we are looking at a wider public information campaign during the month of November including expanded outreach to off-campus Northwestern students to educate them on what the sirens mean, the snow route parking ban and snow emergency procedures, and also educating people, residents and business owners alike, of their obligations and responsibilities under our current ordinances to clear sidewalks abutting their property, including and up to corners and intersections for those that are on corner lots. One of the top complaints that we received through the survey and also through 311 is that in a lot of places, sidewalks are not being cleared or are icy, and that's creating a hazard for folks, and it's a property standards issue. And this may be because people are just not aware of their responsibilities under our current regulations. And so we want to get the word out and do a better job of increasing cooperation and compliance with those regulations by reminding people of those responsibilities and encouraging folks to report problems to 311, because that is a resource and it helps us gather data so that we know whether what we're doing is working.
Excuse me, you've got questions again. Alderman Tendem.
Yes.
Thank you. I think a lot of folks in the Sixth Ward would have, I guess, take issue with the statement about, property standards, because it seems time and, you do clear your sidewalks to the curb, typically at a corner, but time and again, a plow comes by and plows it back shut again. And I've done that 3 or 4 times a day sometimes, and it does get it gets to be a lot of work, and especially for an older person or someone with any sort of inability to do that kind of work. A lot of folks have people that come and do plow for them when they're in that situation, but they're not going to come back and take care of those details. So I think that constant icing in or, snowing in, or whether it's snow or slush or whatever it is. Unfortunately, this last winter, it was water and frozen very solidly, so almost even the professionals had trouble getting it clear. But I think that is an ongoing issue that we need to be a little more sensitive to.
Right, and one of the things that we do want to include in some of our larger public information campaigns is to remind seniors and those with disabilities of our existing volunteer shoveling program that has been offered in previous years. I don't have numbers in front of me on participation, but we do recruit volunteers through Volunteer Evanston and through 311 to assist those residents that do need assistance in plowing out their sidewalks and walks to maintain access and get that done.
Oh, Alderman Rainey.
Well, I'm sure there are some residential scofflaws who don't shovel their walks. But I find it just incredible, the number of businesses that are so irresponsible. And I think when I see these, that sometimes after a couple of days, a little path of where people have tried to walk is their idea of clearing the snow. I don't understand why anybody would shop at a place that doesn't shovel. And the few that I've spoken to, there's an interesting response. If a tenant, a business tenant, will say, it's not my job, it's the landlord's job. The landlord says it's the other one. And I
design concepts as a result of the feedback that she had at that meeting. Curry Park will be done as soon as Caravelli is done with their construction. So we already had the community meeting for that as well to determine what the community wanted, and Stephanie, again, is working on the design of that project. Foster Field renovations is another project that we will be working on as well. Gray Park is the signage and the entrance. Right now we have the hanging banners to denote special events. So we are looking at a more robust way of presenting that and more fitting to the surrounding community for that signage project. The bike path renovation project, again, is also a carryover new CIP, and that's a grant-funded project to redo the path. And as a part of that path, the mayor and Alderman Grover and we actually went for a walk along the path, and I think we have a good plan to go forward. which will involve not installing the sidewalk, but waiting once the path is redone to see whether an additional sidewalk would be needed. And then the parks contingency is just to cover any parks issues that are outstanding. And, and Miss Lovelace Park renovation is for the soccer field to install a turf field at Lovelace Park, as well as field lighting, and that is a grant project as well. And then last but not least is the Penny Parks renovation project, of which we have $250,000 for this year that would carry over to be added with the $400,000. We have had a couple of initial community meetings with that, and I've had some subsequent conversations with Alderman Braithwaite, and it's just a matter of figuring out when to get the consultant back in to finalize the schedule to move that park forward for 2015. So August 2015 is the scheduled time for that project.
So, Madam Mayor, members of the council, that's where we stand. As you know, one of the council's goals is to continue to focus on our parks and our facilities. This document is where we stand on that budgeting. I think especially on the parks projects, I think is consistent with the council's direction. Would remind you that next Tuesday evening, the council is meeting for its visioning discussion here at the Civic Center. So I would imagine that future discussions about next steps, bigger picture next steps on where we're going with capital projects will be part of that. So hopefully this presentation, even though we did not give you the complete overview of everything in this packet, is consistent with where the council's thinking is. We'll continue to work on, again, that 4-year CIP as well as the proposed 2015 budget based on the information in this presentation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank everyone from Public Works. I'm sorry you had to be here till the very end and didn't get fully heard, but thank you for coming. Is there a motion? I will call it. Are we doing call of the wards?
It's there.
What?
It's there if you want.
It's call of the wards is here. Who are we starting with? Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just really quickly, I'm very impressed tonight with the presentations that have been made and how we're trying to work together collectively as a community to address the problems that we face. And again, my compliments to Karen and her staff at the library. I just think that's the kind of creativity that we all need to take and reflect upon to work together as a community, again, to address the very serious situation that's here. It's part of being a village and being the extended family that Alderman Holmes talks about, and I take that really seriously. So want to do whatever I can. If any of you have any suggestions, please let me know, because I really want to be part of the solution here.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up with Alderman Fisk, also wonderful presentations this evening. Thank the city manager for scheduling the Young Youth and Department. I think the work that they're doing is exceptional. I think we don't talk about it enough, and so thank you again for scheduling as well as the mayor's efforts.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. Thank you, Alderman Holmes. Thank you, Alderman Tendam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to make a announcement reminder that there will be a 6th Ward meeting this Thursday evening, July 24th at 7 p.m. at Three Crowns Park. There will be a discussion led by Dave Stoneback about recent flooding issues and solutions that we can propose. There will also be updates on Public Works and a presentation by the Age-Friendly Task Force.
Thank you. Alderman Grover. Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to comment on the work staff did on at least 2 events I attended, and one was the Brummel Park Concert and Food Truck Festival. Never have I seen so many. It's almost getting like Bike the Ridge. They're just too many people and not enough resources. But when you look at a project like that, a lot of work goes into it, and our staff, you know, Joe McCrae and Christina, they're always there, plus everybody else who worked on it. Just amazing. And the Ethnic Art Festival this weekend, it was overly attended, and our staff was all over the place. And you know, these are weekends, and I know they're well paid, but they work very, very hard. So it's very, very impressive. And I want to say happy birthday to some of my fellow Cancerians, Alderman Grover, Alderman Burris, and Alderman Holmes. No, who? Braithwaite, I'm sorry. Oh, and Wally, happy birthday. Is today your day? But the other two are tomorrow. Anyway, happy birthday, happy birthday. Have a good year.
Thank you, Alderman Burris.
No report.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Say nay.